Good evening, everyone. It is Monday. I will try this again. Good evening, everyone. It is Monday, September 12th, 6 p.m. This is Community Consolidated School District 59 Board of Education meeting. Before we begin, I want to remind all board members to speak loudly, turn their mics on so that everyone can hear us, not only in the audience here, but also on the video. With that, roll call, please.
Espino.
Present.
Lang.
Present.
Mencia.
Present.
Petrelli, aye. Reed.
Present.
Sager.
Present.
And Schumacher.
Present.
Okay, can we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Item 4.01, summer programming highlights. Is that Susan in your group?
Good evening. Yes, I would like to invite our summer school supervisors and principals up to present to us this evening.
Just make sure the little green buttons are on.
It's on.
Good evening. I guess we want to start with introductions. I am currently the assistant principal at Friendship Junior High. My name is Brandy Boyd, and I served as Summer Quest principal.
I'll go next. My name is Jennifer Browning. I'm one of the assistant principals at Grove Junior High, and I served as the extended school year or ESY administrator.
How you guys doing? My name is John David. I'm the PE teacher at Forest View Elementary School, and I served as the summer school supervisor at Forest View this summer.
So we just want to kind of bring you some of the summer programming highlights that we had for enrichment, summer school, and ESY.
And just as an overview, summer school went from June 6th to June 30th, which was a total of 4 weeks. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. We offered 3 programs. The first one, which was Summer Quest, students were identified through our NTSS process. They were students who were in K through 7 for literacy and math, monolingual English, and dual language Spanish classrooms.
And for our extended school year or ESY, students are identified through their IEP data. We provide services that are listed in students' IEP, and we service students pre-K through 7th grade.
We also offered enrichment courses. We had two-week sessions of KinderQuest, which were for our rising kindergartners. We offered a class called Adventures in Learning, a sports activity camp, which ran for 2 hours, double accelerated math for our rising 6th graders, and that was by invite only. Instrumental music camp, which was band and orchestra, that was 3 weeks, and they culminated with a concert at the end, which was amazing. And then we also had Instrument Explorers, which is a really cool class where kids got to mess around with different instruments every day. It was pretty cool.
Okay, so here are some of our summer school statistics of how many students attended for Summer Quest, ESY, and enrichment courses. As you can see, we had lots of students. We had almost 600 students attend, so it was pretty packed during summer school at both schools this summer. We had 20 teachers for Summer Quest, 17 for extended school year, and 9 for enrichment. And as you can see, we had a lot of assistants, different office staff. We had 3 administrators and lots of related services, including SLPs, PTs, OTs, to provide those IEP minutes for students who need them.
And this is what a typical student schedule looked like in Summer Quest. The 15 minutes in the morning were devoted to SEL, in which they use those circle keeping prompts. They had about 100 minutes of literacy, and you can see the 3 resources that were used for that. Students also had embedded resource during the day, which was a great break from instruction. And then they had 75 minutes of math, where they used the 3 resources listed there. And then the last 25 minutes were dedicated to SEL again.
So some of the resources that were used across summer school. For Summer Quest, we had Scholastic Lit Camp, which was for K through 7, Sadler from phonics to reading for K through 3 monolingual, Fonética y Gramática for dual language K through 3, and Spanish K through 3. Illustrative math for the entire summer quest from K through 7. ESY used iReady, FAST, curricula, and strategy selections guided by the students' IEP goals, which they worked really hard to accommodate all those IEP goals. And then the enrichment courses were teacher-developed curriculums.
And so here on the screen, you'll see a copy of a Summer Quest report card. And so teachers provided feedback to students and it was individualized feedback based on their literacy and math targets taught during Summer Quest. These progress reports were sent home to families as well as their home schools.
Okay, and here's an example of what our data collection looked for students in the ESY program. Each student had an ESY plan that showed which goal areas they qualified under, as well as the number of minutes that they were to be provided each week and by which service provider. Throughout ESY, teachers kept track of their data, and at the end, they updated their progress to show were they continuing to meet the goal, were they not continuing to meet the goal, and teachers reported the progress. We sent it home to parents, and we also uploaded it to Embrace so that next year's teacher were able to see the progress students made over summer.
Some of the highlights of summer school were the special events that we held. There's a bunch of pictures up there, and we'll see some more as we go through. But we went through our safety drills the first week. We did lockdowns and fire drills to make sure the kids knew where to go in those new buildings that they were at, as well as the teachers. The Mount Prospect Library visited and gave students books to take home. We had Spirit Week. We had Superheroes, Neon Day, Sports Day, and I can't remember the last one. One more day. And then the Star Student Song Request Raffle was a huge hit. We started collecting students' names for doing some of their expected behaviors. So teachers would write their names on a little tag or ticket, and they would bring that to the office. We had a bucket. It started out with just a few the first day, and by the second day, it was exploding. So we had so many kids that were doing such a great job, so they can get they would pick a song, write the name of the song down, and put it in our bucket. We would pick one out at the end of the day, and we would end our day with the students walking out to that song. So we'd play it over the intercom in both schools. It was really great. We also had, like I mentioned earlier, the IMC concert, which is a huge hit. One, because it was the first assembly that we'd had in 2 years at, I think, any of the buildings. And it was great to get all those kids in the room at the same time. And they actually handled it great, and they did a great job. And then to see the students, you'll see in the top center picture, there's a student conducting the one of the songs during the concert, which was just amazing to be a part of and witness. The ESY group did tie-dye day, and kids made some amazing looking shirts. And we also had a field day on the last day of school, where both students from both schools were able to participate in about 18 different activities in about 3 hours that we gave them. And then we ended the day with popsicles, which is always the best.
All right. At the end of summer programming, we offered some surveys to staff, and 42 out of 95 staff completed our surveys. Some of the feedback was that communication from summer school leaders was excellent. So we, pride ourselves on trying to communicate as much as possible so that staff know what's expected. Resources provided met students' needs, and field day was a great celebration. So we'll have to bring that back next year. We also gave some parent feedback. 26 families participated and completed our survey. Almost all respondents felt that their child enjoyed summer programming and benefited from the program. And almost all respondents would like to send their child to summer school again. So here's a quote from one of the parents who said that both her boys were happy to go to school every morning and always had something positive to say about their friends, their teachers, and the stories that they read that day or the activities that they participated in. And it's been a great experience overall. So we really liked getting feedback. It helps us improve programming for the following year when we see what staff and students are showing as a need for improvement.
I can share a little bit about next steps. So we are going to take a look at our student data as well as the family survey information in more detail to determine what our needs are for next school year. We would like to establish a summer program committee of interested staff to revise academic program options. So last year we were trying to determine how we would provide our services, and from our feedback with staff, they wanted to stick with our Scholastic Lit Camp option with some enrichment, but we're going to get a committee together to really think about how we can reimagine summer programming, get as many kids involved as possible. And we're going to start that process probably in the next month or so. And then from there, we'll develop criteria for course proposals from interested staff, and then look at what courses we can create around student choice, creativity, engagement, while continuing our emphasis on literacy and math skill development. So we really want to take a look at that. Hopefully, the dust is settling a little bit and we can actually get some time with teachers to look at how we can think about summer in maybe a bit of a different way moving forward. And I do want to thank our summer school leaders. They were amazing. They did a fantastic job, and I thank them very much for being here tonight as well.
Thank you. Here are just some pictures that we took from all three programs. We had a lot of staff come visit us. Dr. Bresnahan visited us and walked around both buildings. So we had our ESY, summer enrichment, and summer school all doing things that they wanted to do for summer.
So I want to thank you all for making this programming possible, because it looks fantastic and it looks like the students are having fun in addition to learning. A question I have, and I guess this is more for Susan, is as we think about our students who were trying to get up to grade level standards after the pandemic, besides the IEPs, which I assume each student has really individualized data for, do we have any quantitative data to show literacy and math progress for the students who might not have an IEP but were participating in these programs and are trying to get up to grade level?
We actually have the list of students, and we could look at that based on their iReady fall data that they took at benchmarking and see how they did. But I don't have that at my fingertips. But because we have that student information and we have that benchmarking, we could take a look to see. That is something that would be important to gather.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think it's very important that we do use the whole school year, and everybody doesn't have to come, but those who want to come can come, and those who should be there are encouraged to come, I'm sure. So it sounds to me like a wonderful idea.
So we had three programs. We had Summer Quest, which was student identified by the teachers and the staff, correct? Extended School Year, which is those with IEPs, and then the enrichment courses were those open to everyone, correct? Okay, just for clarification. So I'm assuming the Summer Quest people are like tier 2 and 3 students?
Yes, typically they were referred to their district, their schools or HTSS process.
Okay.
So I just have a few questions. So first of all, it's amazing we had more than 10% of all students did summer school this year. And I want to thank the staff who gave up part of their summer to do that after a rough few years, because I know it's been rough for people in education. And I just had a few questions for class sizes. So if I do a rough estimate of numbers for class sizes, what are the average class sizes for?
For ESY, we tried to have it about 7 to 9, just because some students had 9 goals to work on for summer, some students had 2 or 3. So we tried to keep it small so that we could take enough data.
Students with IEPs
Yes.
and programs. And then for like the Summer Quest,
Around 14 to 16.
14 and 16. So again, keeping the class sizes smaller so the students get better focus. And then for the enrichment, it seemed like they're slightly bigger, but those are
Dependent on the class, yeah.
depending on the
Yeah.
class. Okay.
In which buildings did you use this year?
We were at the ELC and Forest View.
Okay.
And then to Susan, so we invite students to the extended school year and the Summer Quest. Do all the students we invite show up? Is it some percentage of students? Are we?
Yes, not all students who are invited will attend summer school. Mrs. Browning actually pulled the data on the ESY numbers for exactly how many attended. For Summer Quest, I don't have those numbers of exactly how many. Do you have them?
Yeah, Summer
Okay.
Quest is 52%. So out of
Thank
the
you.
638, we invited 332 came.
Okay. And so the Summer Quests are not IEP, but have been identified as they would benefit greatly.
Yes.
So do we have a way to encourage higher participation than 50%? Anything we're thinking about?
I think that when we're looking at when we're working at the building level, we really want to make sure that we follow up with parents. Sometimes it conflicts with their summer plans, with other things they have going on. I would say it's pretty typical of what we've had in the past, but part of that summer committee, we really want to look at how do we really engage our families in the process as well, to look at what do people really want out of summer programming? What kinds of programming, what kind of times, what works best, because we've been doing, we did similar things and we had a little bit of a change during COVID with remote. And now we're back to kind of a traditional approach. And we'd like to look at that again and see what else we could do that might entice more families. Again, kind of looking at maybe more enrichment options that merge some of the acceleration plans as well, like looking at students who would identify for needing support in math and literacy, but also offering it through different types of activities or coursework that they could do, sort of hands-on learning and that kind of thing.
Is it free?
Summer school's free, yes. Some of the enrichment courses had a small fee. I think there was a small one for instrumental music, but free.
And we did provide transportation as well, too, correct?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, that was going to be my question as well. We know for ELC, we invite families to come to preschool, and we get this where families close to the ELC come and families elsewhere in the district don't. Out of that 50%, is there a similar pattern where it's like the 50% closest to the site come and the other 50% don't?
Well, actually, we do have our data on students that attended by homeschool, and we don't have a pattern that is that strong. So you have a couple of low numbers that are from schools that are further away, but then you have some that are further away that had a pretty high percentage. So we're not seeing consistent patterns in that regard for either the dual students or we're not really seeing anything that would jump out.
And then one thing that stood out for me was the rising sixth grader double accelerated. Is that for sixth graders going to all the junior highs?
Yes, that is correct. So we have our students who are in double accelerated going into Friendship. In the past, we've had that program.
Right.
We've now expanded it to Holmes and Grove.
Okay,
So this is the first year of offering that. So that's to prepare them to then enter that double accelerated pathway at all three schools. And I think I have the numbers on the students that attended actually. So we had a total of 14 attend out of the 19 that qualify for the double accelerated track. So that's quite an advanced track. That's a smaller number of students typically.
Right. And I know in the past Friendship had it, but the
Yes.
others
Yeah.
didn't.
So now we've done
all
that.
the schools have that
Yes.
ability now.
So they'll move on and they'll move into that advanced track, and for 3 years we'll plan for that, making sure that we have the supports at the building, the teachers that are certified to teach it, et cetera.
Very good.
Thank you.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 4.02, the 10-year facilities plan.
Dr. Brezahan and members of the board, thank you for having us. We'd like to share some of our information as to how we've been doing for the past year. Of course, you know, my counterpart here, Mr. Albert Tiarina, who is the Director of Buildings and Grounds, who assists us with giving recommendations and ensuring that our facilities are top-notch. First thing I'd like to do is show a list of the things that we have done over time since July of 2020. It's an exhaustive list. You look at the asphalt that's been taken care of, boilers and chillers, building automation systems, access control, rooftop units, roofing, video surveillance. I could go on with this list, but it's worth mentioning that it's almost kind of like a rehab of 15 different buildings. And the expense has been about $45 million. We will go back into that shortly, but I wanted you to understand that there's been a lot that has been done and been well funded. Have anything to comment on here?
No, I just, for me, I just appreciate the opportunity to that all of you have allowed for this department, to expand and to get this work completed, because it's truly necessary to plan ahead, not to wait for things to break, if you will, to really stay ahead of the curve. And so I think by, allowing for all this work to happen, it's really now has expanded onto, other areas that the board can really focus in on. So
I don't
Just
remember
appreciate
the
that.
name of the lights, but we talked for quite some time about the special lighting at the schools what is it called?
that
Al?
was the LED lighting.
Yes.
The upgrade.
How
Yes. And
how
so
far
what
has
we
that
did
project
is-
gotten?
Oh, that's completed.
That's
completely
completed.
completed this summer. Yeah.
Good.
So what we did is we took advantage of all the existing non-LED lighting, and we replaced all of those with new LED lighting. So
That should
so
help us a
even in
great
our
deal.
storage rooms, our mechanical rooms, where our men, work during the day, so those areas have now been replaced with sufficient lighting for them as well. But we've also taken care of our common areas. So our LRCs, our exterior, our building lights, our parking lot lights. So
Good.
a lot of good feedback from that.
I'm sure.
So before we dive in a little bit more, there's a phrase that Albert and I have used is when you walk through these buildings, you have to ask yourself, would I have my child go through these buildings? If you don't want a child to be through that building, especially your own, there's an issue. So we follow up on everything. Phase 1 was the start of it. That's when we first started working together here. And if you can see here, it's a $12.5 million expense at the time where asphalt was taken care of. We have some HVAC work that was done, boilers, chillers, rooftop units, and we'll show some photos of those shortly. The building automation systems were taken care of, and roofing that needed to be replaced. So here's an example of the before and after of parking lot work. A lot of our parking lots were in need of repair and being able to be taken care of, seal coated. And now if you drive to each one of our sites, you should be seeing what you see now on the right, which is taken care of now, but there's going to be maintenance with it. This isn't just something that's a one and done.
That is correct. Yes. So, our approach has been, to mill and overlay where needed, and then to stay, within a rotation of maintenance, which means seal coating, every 2 to 3 years, stay in that rotation. And so what we were able to accomplish this summer was half the district. We were able to go back through and we seal coated and we're maintaining. And so that's really what's important. So what we'll see for next summer is we're asking to seal coat the rest of the district and just continue on that process so that we can get at least a good, 20, to 25 years out of our parking lots.
Am I right in assuming that because we did so much this year that we should not have as much to do next year?
That is correct. In certain regards, yes.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
This was one of my favorite places here to see is the HVAC work. When you see the cranes putting down the units up there, just to see how everything was being put together, it kind of brings out the child in me because I was kind of like, wow, that was really cool. But it came up together. We've had nothing but really positive reviews on that work. So we moved on to phase 2, which was $21.1 million. We did a lot more of the same type of work, but univents were included on this because it's another form of we're talking about heating and air conditioning. And here's a good photo of the roofing that we've been doing across the district. Albert, would you like to comment on the roofing?
Yeah, in regards to roofing and others, if we talk about roofing in general, all of our buildings have had Devonshire has had a complete roof replacement. All the other schools except for 2, which is Frost and Salt Creek, have had what's called a roofing overlay. So we're in that 90 percentile complete roof replacement or repair or mill and overlay. And in regards to HVAC, all of our boilers at all of our schools, all of our chillers, our univents, again, all of these devices, these pieces of equipment have been completely replaced or refurbished up to this point. So again, I would say if I gave it a percentage, we're in that 90 percentile. And so, we're setting the plate for the future. Again, I think that we're looking at 90% replacement, refurbishment. So we're in really good shape when it comes to that.
And one thing actually to bring up with that, Albert made a good point. The district was very forward thinking with the HVAC piece. When we did MERV 13 filtration, which I know that we were really documenting, it was not just a COVID situation for us. It's a matter of keeping our students healthy in the buildings as well as the staff. And when you have kids in class, they tend to, be engaged, right? So that was part of the plan behind it. And if you can see in these photos here, the before and after of, Albert, you can talk about this one.
This is routine. These are routine things that our men, our maintenance mechanics see. They bring it to my attention. We look at this and say, okay, we give this a grade. Well, what grade would we give that? It'd be a poor grade on the left. And so we do something about it. And that's what we do. What you see on the right as a replacement, because we look at those, we get the cost of what it takes to make the proper repair. And we just don't leave it. We continue with it, even if it's, minor roof leaks that sometimes are hard to find because roof leaks are difficult at times, but we don't just stop. We continue to pursue to find, the proper fix, if you will, for it. So these things like this, these are things that still are going to continue to exist, in other areas, which we can talk about later, but, like doors and hardware and things of that nature. These are just common things that, are part of a maintenance process, for buildings.
And then we had this one picture of a univent. So if anyone wanted to understand what this was, and you see them in classrooms or in the sides, this is what it was. The district decided to switch some of these out, clean them, make sure that we did have the proper filtration systems available that would tie in with our boilers and chillers and provide perfect relief for our students and staff in the buildings. Other work completed. This was a list that I struggled on because there's a lot of work that has been done that's been awesome for our district. So if you see the secure vestibules, water fountains, now that we have the bottled water fountains, video surveillance, which is something that we are continuing to improve upon. Look at the exit and emergency lighting, which is important in times of crisis. Mardell, to your point with the LED lighting, that's up there for sure. Yeah. HVAC work, that was an additional 6.1 million. Sanitary lines have been being worked on and being maintained by our teams. Public address systems that are inside the buildings for announcements, as well as if there are any sort of intruders. And then the Friendship Gym, which is being finished up.
Now, the Friendship Gym partly should have been covered by the insurance, correct?
No, that is not correct. So
not this, huh?
No, the Holmes one was.
Oh, the Holmes one.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, Friendship was the one where
Holmes is the one that was flooded.
Correct.
Okay. My mistake.
No, it's okay. I mean, there's a lot of work we've done. So if you look at secure vestibules, for example, the way they've come out, they've been fantastic. This was at Juliet Low. That gives you additional layers before anyone can come into the buildings, and that's purely for safety. It's nothing against anybody. It's just that we're trying to protect our children.
So Ron, just to confirm on that piece, because am I right? It was like 3 vestibule entrances were not secured with that double layer of, I think at Juliet Low and 2 of our other facilities, if someone gained the first level of entrance, they had access to hallways to get throughout the school. And so is it correct now that across the district, there's that dual level of security to get inside our buildings and access hallways and classrooms?
That is correct. Yes. So as of today, as of the first day of school, that was our goal for this summer, was to create that same secured vestibule at all of our sites. And so that was something that, again, I thank you for, allowing us to go ahead and go through that process. That was part of the camera upgrade that we had all agreed to. We said, in addition to that, can we continue and make all the schools the same as far as our vestibules and making them secure? So that's what we did this summer, and we achieved that goal. So
yeah, we really thank you guys for that, and also thank the Facilities and Safety Committee, because I think for all of the parents in the room, and I'm a parent, knowing that we're doing everything we can to make the building safe for the kids is critically important. So thank you.
Absolutely.
No, and we appreciate that. And I know this is a side note, but we did have a meeting with the local law enforcement in the past week to discuss what we are going to do to improve, get better on. And we are looking into a security audit across all 15 buildings so that we do know from a third party, nationally known, we're doing it right. And then some. Because you can know there should never stop on that. So I like this photo though too. Let's go back to water fountains.
Yeah.
I know vestibules are real serious. Water fountains are pretty amazing here.
Yeah.
When we were in times of crisis with COVID, I remember yelling at my child when my son is still putting his mouth on those things, and he's 13. So when we talk about, do you want your child to go through here? What we noticed was that for the facilities, having those bottle fillers were perfect. And Albert did a lot of work to make sure that we got the right ones and went out to bid for them. And then we decided to provide funds for each building so that they could have their school logo on there as well as a bottle and have school pride and have that access that they should have. And then here's the lighting project. You can see the lighting a lot better now in terms of being able to see what's going on around our facilities, even after school. It's not to say that we think something bad is going to happen, but you want to make sure that you have proper lighting around your facility.
That's Brentwood, by the way.
And then sanitary line repair. This is not a photo I like. If you look here, there were times when the team had to work with the municipalities to ensure that there were the clay piping or whatever you want to call it there, and that the water was not being stopped by tree roots. So there were times at the beginning in the initial conversations that we were trying to think, do we replace them or not? And then Albert, why don't you tell them about what you've discovered and what you're determining now?
Yeah. So what we've been able to do is we videoed every line at every school just to see if there's been any collapsed pipes, because we do still have existing clay piping. And one of the thoughts in the very beginning was, hey, if we do have clay piping, let's replace the clay piping, with new PVC piping, and then go through that process. What we found was there were some collapsed pipes, and where there were collapsed pipes, we took care of those. But we didn't necessarily have to go through and replace all the clay piping. If they're still in good shape, what really needs to take place is there needs to be a good maintenance program put in place to have those clay pipes just jetted, what we call water jetting. They're jetted through, and the roots that grow through the clay piping are cut out, and then we're just maintained. So, there's always a possibility, now in today's day where we're using more wipes, we're using a lot more products like that. We ask everyone to throw that in the trash, but sometimes that doesn't happen. So there's always a possibility. But as far as making sure that the lines from the building out to the street are clear, we found ways of doing that without having to go through the expense of making a major, turn it into a major construction project.
Could I just go back for a minute to the Friendship gym floor, because I forgot that we were doing that one because I knew we were doing the flooded one over at Holmes. Is this the first time that the Friendship one has been replaced, or has it been replaced before?
It's been repaired. It's been repaired in the past, probably, I want to say four times.
4 times. Now, this was a total replacement, or was this another repair?
So this was a full replacement. But what we did is we went to the root of the problem. Oh. So instead of making another repair, my thought process was, I don't want to make another repair after this repair. Mm-hmm. Why are these repairs occurring? What is actually the root of the cause of the problem? And so what we found was there's hydrostatic water pressure that was coming up from underneath that was actually creating that situation. And that's what would create every now and then, every so often, that would create water to lie under the wood, which would then warp the wood. And so
you're supposed to see that.
So what we did is we resolved the problem by adding proper drainage, which you see on the very right-hand side. That's the pipe, that's the foundation wall. That's on the inside of that brick wall. That's the gym floor at Friendship on the very right hand picture there. So what we did is we addressed the problem first. So now any water that tends to flow that way is now going to flow through those pipes down the drainage, and they're going to avoid the floor. So we first addressed the problem, and then after that, then we addressed the gym as a
Well, I'm
whole.
glad. I'm glad you did it right this time. So now it'll be
Thank you.
And you'll see
because
here.
it's not a low price project. It's a big project.
It might be
so-
a low price to make a repair, but if you have to
right.
continuously make
If you have
repairs,
to do it,
then
and do
it's-
it. It's,
Yeah.
With any sort of, like, especially with wood, when it buckles, when it gets wet under there, that creates an environment. It's a hazard.
Right.
So we wanted to make sure that was avoided from now on. And you could see the bubble. I mean, it would be pretty big when we were seeing it, and then we look behind us. I know I keep pressing the wrong button. But you can see the before, and you can see the water, like the rust that was occurring as a result. And Albert would talk about. And then here's the current format of the Friendship Gym.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Good.
Yeah, no, just a comment as a thanks, because these projects, the dollar, the price tag on them is expensive, but full replacements of a damaged roof is far more expensive. I always think of it like a car. You want to check your oil, and you want to avoid the check engine light coming on, and we want to make sure the check engine light doesn't come on in our schools. So
Yeah.
so it's really important to stay on top of this maintenance.
Yeah. That's a great analogy. Yeah. Exactly.
So the price for the gym, that included the new bleachers, is correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
No. Here we go. And so in progress, we're still doing a couple more projects right now while gearing up and planning, which you will help us do. The Juliet Low retention, we're working on that. You'll see a photo of that in a minute, just because the parking lot is like a retention pond, literally. Air handling units, we're finalizing. Some of the parts are finally coming in so that we can get that taken care of, as Albert mentioned earlier, because we have about 90% of it done. And then the big piece here is 21st century upgrades. We want to maximize our space. Educational needs have changed over time. We're seeing that happening. So down the line, we'd like to look at gyms, LRCs, because, they have to be flexible spaces, auditoriums, as well as classrooms. And with the guidance of Dr. Bresnahan, we've started to think of some really great ideas that will happen. So it's very exciting work. There's the Juliet Low retention that will be gone once the drainage is taken care of. And that's where the teachers park.
Yeah, it's just a very unpredictable situation. A rainfall could happen during the day, during the school day, and that's you get out at 3:00, and that's what you're dealing with. But that was the intent. The original intent was to do that. So what we're doing now is we're creating a new retention, so that way the water flows away from the parking lot, so that teachers don't have to walk through.
And it's been going on a long time, so it's good that you're getting it accomplished.
Yeah.
As well as some building preparation, which over time we're going to be seeing. So if you see at the top here, here's the cafeteria, the before, and then the after is at the bottom here. This is at Holmes. And then the LRC was a before as well. Bottom is more of an after as well, where you do have, for example, shelving for books that you can push and cart alongside rather than them being stationary. So the event of having community events, having staffing meetings, or maybe there's something that a classroom is going to utilize it for. We don't know that. So we want to be prepared.
Ron, have we exhausted all of the federal ESSER funds? Is there an opportunity to get more?
We have exhausted it, but the $8.1 million from the ARP has not been claimed yet. That will be coming into the books this fiscal year. But it's spoken for, which was mostly like the HVAC work.
Right.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that. So if you look at the financial sources that we've used over time, there was a bond issuance here back in 2020 that was for approximately, well, not approximately, there's the actual number there, but it's $30.6 million. The local contribution that we've been working on as a team, it's about almost 14.4 million. So the district since July 2020 has committed to $45 million worth of projects, and we are still in great shape. They're long-term projects that provide flexibility, as well as they're not cheap. It's quality. It's something that will last for our kids. I like the quote that we talk about with the plan and discussed work. There's a lot of stuff that we can still look at. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring some of these projects to you next month with an approximate cost tag. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be for real, like a real number, because you never know how the market's going to be. We've seen how this has been going on, but I mean, we're still looking at seal coating and Friendships mill and overlay for their parking lot. Some of the door and hardware pieces for the health, life, safety. The police department even mentioned about that. Finishing their PA system upgrades, just maintaining the sanitary lines, roofing overlays at 2 more buildings, some of our windows, our floorings, and then Brentwood is overdue for a playground by about, how many years has that playground been there?
Just over 25, about 25 years.
About 25 years. Mm-hmm. So it needs to be taken care of. And again, these are subject to change. We're waiting to see what happens with the equity journey because we do have 15 buildings. And it is treating every one of those 15 buildings like every one of our children will be in those. So we have to make every single building top notch.
Yeah, and also too, just a comment, this type of maintenance work keeps the schools open, keeps the kids in the school. You know, a broken HVAC system in the summer, or, you know, even in the winter, all of a sudden kids are going home, you know, so it's important to just make sure we stay on top of these things.
Right.
So here's the next steps again. We'd like to do a little bit of discussion on potential projects with an approximate cost. In November, we'd like to come to you to talk about an approval on certain bidding processes, projects, if need be, which there are some that we need to do. And then in December and January, we can bring results with recommendation based on priority. Does not mean just because we go out to bid that we're just going to say yes. We want to really vet it out. Now, here's the last slide, and this is the one I always feel is really powerful. The board policy is 425, which is fund balance policy. We're supposed to maintain a total of no less than 50 to 60% of range in our operation funds, right? Educational, O&M, transportation, and working cash. So our fund balance that's being presented or projected for those several there is approximately $110 million. The expenses are projected to be about $121 million. So you have a fund balance coverage of about 91%. Despite this, we're still doing projects. We're still making our schools better. We're still doing what we need to do to make a better situation for our kids, all 15 buildings. So this is why I would like this, everybody to understand and the board appreciate everything you're doing, because we do have resources. We are extremely lucky to have the resources that most districts don't, especially with the Cook County. We talked about Cook County tax, how delinquent they're going to be with the payments. Every third party has told us we're fine. There are districts that are taking out loans. So let's just be grateful.
No, absolutely. It's we have the resources, and you guys are doing a good job of being smart with the resources and not just spending just to spend.
Ron, you beat me to the punch a little bit. The policy of 50 to 60% being in Cook County, having a 90% is a little bit nice because we may not be getting revenue when we expect it.
Correct. And I appreciate you saying that, Dr. Sager. It's something that needs to be highlighted.
I kind of want to add one thing. Thank you guys for all you're doing. I was meeting at one of the back to school events. I was talking to one of our new assistant principals who came from the public schools of Chicago. And I asked what she likes about this. She goes, I have working doors and I can have supplies. So, I mean, it was kind of nice to know that, what we take for granted, it's almost a luxury in some school districts. So I want to, be thankful that we have what we've been able to accomplish so far. And we have to keep maintaining the stuff. As like you use the car analogy, it's a perfect example. We need to keep doing it. And that's why we're looking at, finishing up the roofing, looking at the windows. And the windows, when we're looking at that, they've been in there for 20, 25 years. but we also want to look at it from a safety and security perspective as well too.
Correct.
How can we make them more secure? So that's kind of our, and that I think this coming out of the Facility and Finance Committee, this is kind of our wish list for next summer. But until we really sit down and look at some numbers, we don't know what we're really going to do. But I think the more we can get accomplished now, the better we can make our schools in the long run.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron and Albert.
Thank you very much.
Item 4.03, Equity Journey Update. Dr. Bresnahan.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I am very excited to be able to share some updates with our full board. We've had 2 meetings so far with our equity task force, and so it feels nice to be together with the full board to be able to share out some updates. And then also talk about our next steps. What I thought might be the most useful way to walk through our updates is to actually take us through what is available to our entire community and the public. So starting from our district homepage, we have our equity tab to the far left on the bottom. So we're going to just go there. And all of our information, we're really trying to make this a very transparent process to keep everything in one place, make it accessible in multiple languages, but then to also have detailed notes and minutes about our journey to date. If you remember, it started back with the creation of our strategic plan, which began with our community in 2019. So we're going to stay up at the top real quick. Sorry. I'm going to read our kind of our driving equity statement that I think at all of our meetings bears repeating. So equity in District 59 means ensuring all students have equitable access to resources and opportunities to equip them to be successful for life. In the most basic understanding of this that I've been using is to ensure that all students, regardless of which school they attend, have equitable opportunities for that success. So we don't want which school they attend to be or which program they attend to be the factor that determines their success in the future. So again, let's go down to the timeline, Ross. You're jumping just where I wanted to go. So on this webpage, we actually can walk through a timeline just to remember where we've been and where we are today. So starting back in August 2019, that ran through December. That's where the process really happened with an engaged community group. So that strategic plan was created, and that includes and identified our core values, which included equity and diversity, as well as outlining our goals about equitable access to resources, programmings, human resources, and our facilities. And then moving forward, we took a little bit of a pause, but then hit the ground running back in 2020, 2021, where we really began to look at our system as a whole through the lens of equity. And we began looking at an equity audit and how we might actually evaluate from an outside perspective how equitable we were in terms of serving our students. Moving forward through there, we then gave a equity presentation to the board. If you recall, we also did an audit of our dual language programs, as well as enlisting the partnership of Cropper in order to look at our enrollments and our demographics. So we really took kind of a 3-pronged approach to look holistically at our district to identify what our areas of needs were in terms of equity. And then looking forward to this year where we are, we started looking at creating a team and a task force to help us look at what those identified areas were and how we might best address them, as well as the ongoing work internally through the district administration and work of our strategic plan to ensure that we were meeting those needs of our goals. So if we could scroll up real quick, I want to just revisit our why and why we're doing this work, because this is really the driving force around it. So we identified 8 areas of focus. And if we look at these really slick web tools, we identified transportation that we took a deep dive in to assess how long are our students traveling on buses in order to get to the schools where they receive their programming. That ranges from anywhere from 16 minutes to 66 minutes, including even our earliest learners at the Early Learning Center. Then we looked at our demographics as well, and looking at how do we balance demographics across our schools, knowing that diversity and inclusion are two important components of our core values. And we know that our students benefit when we have access to a diverse student body. And so looking at that as how do we achieve that across our schools? Enrollment is another area where we really saw a deficit for us. We have enrollment that varies. We have some of our schools which enrollments have declined pretty drastically over the last several years. And how do we program for our students? How do we create sections at grade levels when we have declining enrollments or fluctuations in enrollments that are hard to be predictable? Then we looked at our resource allocation because we are required to report out by school. So looking at how much we spend per pupil, and we saw that that varied anywhere from about $14,000 to almost upwards of $20,000, depending on which school students attended. I'm going to save student outcomes for last, but next one we'll go to class sizes. We've talked many times about class sizes. As a student, experience a class size, we ranged from 9 to 32 last year. There's an impact on how you learn as a student. There's an impact on how you teach as a teacher when you are dealing with those class sizes. And those vary not only within an individual school, but they can vary from school to school. You couple class size with enrollment, and what we have currently, based on our existing conditions, is a really unpredictable system that does not allow for us to predictably balance out grade level class sizes from year to year. That has long-term impacts of staffing implications and moving staff in order to meet the fluctuating needs of our class sizes. It also impacts our students who are in specific programs. There's compliance issues that are impacted by that. It also, when we don't have specific class caps, we have to face difficult choices of taking a class size of 27 and do we split it to make a 13 and a 14, or do we keep it at a 27? And that is what we are facing today, currently. And every year that we are not taking an action to address this, we are going to continue to face those issues. Then that leads into our access to programming. So when we think about specific programs that students need and are required to have, we have to look how those programs are provided. Are they provided in a child's attendance area, or do they have to leave that attendance school in order to go get the services that they need? So we're really hoping to find a better way to create equitable access to the programs that students need. And then how do we expand to some optional programs as well? And this addresses students who are in our dual language programs, both one-way and two-way Spanish, in our Polish dual language program. It also impacts our ELS program for students with identified special education needs. It also impacts even looking at our early learning center. We talked about even summer school and its location. Does that play out in terms of how we can access different programming, which again is connected to transportation? And then facility and capacity usage. We have talked about this many times, how we just went through a nice long presentation about our facilities and how we are upkeeping 15 schools that are requiring a decent amount of money per building to maintain, some of which are used at 41% capacity, others that are used upwards of 95% of capacity. That also impacts the way our principals are able to manage their buildings. It impacts how they're able to utilize those facilities and just the general environment that our students are learning in. All of those things impact our ability to create conditions for students to achieve, both academically, social, emotionally, physically, mentally. All of those areas are greatly impacting how we are able to have our students reach their full potential. So when we look at student outcomes, we have already identified, and we've been sharing very transparently with the board for over the last year since I've been here, looking at the discrepancies that we see not only school to school, but across different demographic groups. And also, in addition to the impact from the pandemic, but just even looking historically, what are groups that have been conditioned to have achievement gaps academically? We look at our discipline and behavior data, and we see discrepancies in that as well. Those are all areas that are really under our radar right now in terms of achieving equity. This is our why. And all of these things are done in tandem with teaching and learning, which is the business of what we do. So as we continue to work on curriculum, as we continue to work on social emotional learning, as we continue to improve our schedules and create other programs and opportunities for our students, we are limited by some of these structural things that are in existence. And so the purpose of our work is to really identify, how do we resolve these? How do we get closer towards equity so that we can close achievement gaps, we can eliminate opportunity gaps, and we can make sure that we live into our mission to help all students be successful. So if we go below the areas of focus, we have our task force, and this is where all of our information from our task force is living. So I want to thank all of our task force members who have participated so far. We have parent representatives for each of our schools, and we have teacher representatives and staff representatives across our district as well. We are really supporting the process through our SLT, as well as in partnership with Cropper to help kind of coordinate the look at from a logistical perspective of boundaries and enrollments, but in partnership with us as people who are dealing every day with the ins and outs of class sizes and personnel and resource allocations and programming. So if we click on the first link there, August 22nd was our first meeting. I want to give a shout out to Ben Gray and his team around communications. They did a really outstanding job of putting together a very detailed summary of what transpired at the meeting. I know both Patty and Courtney are representatives from the board, and I'm going to ask them in a little bit to contribute their thoughts. But the whole idea was, we are not able to have everybody at these meetings. We wanted to create the most transparent way of sharing out what transpires at these meetings so that we can ensure that what happens at our meeting is what's communicated out. So these very detailed summary reports have been created so that you can really walk through what is happening at these meetings. I do want to reiterate that the purpose of our equity task force is not to build a recommendation for the board. It is to provide input and to be very well educated and versed in terms of the data that we are sharing so that we can have conversations around our potential solutions. So we've really appreciated the conversations and the input that has been provided so far. And we had our second task force meeting just last Thursday. That report should be coming out tomorrow. It does take some time. You just saw what Ross put up, our translated version. So we take every single presentation, handout, and piece of material and make sure that it's translated so that we can provide that in both English and in Spanish. So hopefully by tomorrow, we'll have that shared out with the community from our last times meeting and really be able to link that up here and have that accessible to the full community. We've also encouraged our equity task force members to be representatives of their broader groups. So they have fielded a lot of questions. We've also created a form. If we go down, there is an ask a question, provide input link right there where you can submit a form if you have a comment or question. We've received, I believe, 18 so far from 14 different parents and staff members providing input, asking questions. We bring those questions back to the equity task force so that we can address them, discuss them, and add them to our conversation, which has been really helpful. A few clarifying things that I want to bring up because, again, I think as with any process, this is a very large endeavor. It is a lot of data. It is a lot of potential change for this district. It is creating, as we had anticipated, a lot of emotional reactions. And so I want to just have every opportunity to reiterate and clarify where we are in terms of the process. We have 2 more meetings to come. Where we started, what had been shared out with the public, we had 5 initial options that were very draft and put out there. They really fell into 2 categories, looking at a pure redistricting model, just moving boundary lines. And then the other 4 fell under the same umbrella of looking at boundary changes with pairing options. So it was pairing and partnering schools, and there were 4 kind of different iterations, 2 which explored the idea of Salt Creek as a new junior high to kind of alleviate some of the overcrowding at Grove. The other 2 looked at repurposing 2 of our elementary schools. One being one option explored looking at repurposing the Ridge facility into another use. The other explored looking at Rupley. So what we tried to do through that initial meeting was really pare down how do we get to the most viable option so that then we can layer in all of our programming. We can layer in transportation using this year's real-time data because that is an exceptional amount of work on our internal team. And to be able to produce that for multiple options is really challenging. We wanted one option that was most viable to look at and then further tweak and assess. So we have not landed on a recommendation. Again, that's not the purpose of the Equity Task Force. Right now, we are narrowing that down so that we can layer in those programming, class sections, and transportation. We have not discussed a timeline. The only discussion around timeline of the Equity Task Force is that we know the earliest anything could happen is next year, but we would want input on a timeline in terms of any change. What is sustainable? What can our organization manage in terms of change? But also, what is our most urgent and pressing changes that maybe need to be made so that we could start to address some of those 8 areas of focus? The one piece that we have narrowed and kind of eliminated, and we talked about this at our last board meeting, was looking at a pure redistricting model. We went through the original draft option for redistricting. We went through another exercise with the Equity Task Force last Thursday that did some pretty substantial boundary shifts that really cut through neighborhoods. And we did not feel comfortable that that would be a viable solution. There was one that even was done kind of off to the side that was even more so, where it actually ended up physically closing 3 of our schools. Again, those 3 options, the more we got feedback, did not seem like those would be the best long-term solutions and would limit our possibilities of potential growth in the future. And then the last piece, which also seems to be kind of a buzz out in the community, and I just want to reiterate, curriculum is an ongoing part of our work and responsibility that we do on a daily basis that is really done outside of this equity journey. It began with our math implementation last year. We are in the process of piloting. You may have seen some of our ELA materials out in the hallway. We are going to begin our ELA pilots. Mrs. Savage will have some updates on that later. But that really happens regardless of what the outcome of this process is. Our commitment to the curriculum is deeply embedded with what we do on a regular basis. What we're trying to then position that, and Susan said this so beautifully earlier today, is that we have curriculum is the standards and the materials and the resources. But the art of what we do within classrooms with our teachers for learning and for teaching is limited depending on how we structure and how we create our schools. And so we want to provide the best curriculum, but we also want to provide the best conditions for teaching and learning to take place, which ultimately then leads to our student outcomes. So those are the main points of clarity that I wanted to just really reiterate as we go into our next 2 meetings for our Equity Task Force. Our next meeting will be Thursday, September 22nd. Then we will have a committee of the whole with the board on September 26th, where we will spend pretty much I know we have some budget items, but then outside of that, we will spend the majority of that time in deep discussions and review of the equity journey and what those options are at that point on September 26th. I will ask Courtney and Patty as the board representatives to contribute anything else they'd like to for this update.
Yeah. So being a board representative on this committee, I think is one like parallel to my work on the board. I have to sort of remove my parent hat because I am a parent at an elementary school in one of our middle schools and approach it from the vantage point that Dr. Bresnahan encouraged us all on the task force to have at the first meeting, which is that we need to be upstream thinkers. And without sharing that full analogy, it's really trying to think about, instead of rescuing drowning disaster situations, sort of one-offs as they occur, instead, let's think about going back to the root of the problem and trying to solve what's creating sort of a multitude of smaller problems downstream. So I feel fortunate that I have some practice of being on the board for 3 years and sort of taking away my parent hat and trying to look at it a bit more broadly. I think the one thing I'll share is I expressed to Dr. Bresnahan at the beginning of this that I feel what maybe a lot of you feel here is the tension of two competing concerns when it comes to timing. I feel the tension of us as parents, our colleagues as educators, have just endured an incredibly difficult last few years where we've been all collectively subjected to change that we had no control over. And we're really at the mercy of all of these forces outside of our control. And I think emotionally for all of us, physically for all of us, that was a huge lift. So I have this one part of me that says, okay, like these changes, why now? We've literally just endured so much. Why now? On the other hand, I also am a board member and I receive emails from teachers. I have received emails from teachers' parents pleading with me that their daughter, who's teaching in kindergarten class, has over 30 students in her class and that she cannot, reasonably have the resources to teach these students. And I'm giving you one small example, but there's dozens more that I could give you of these one-off situations I'm aware of as a board member that come our way because of the broader structural problems. And when I also weigh into that, the fact that COVID made the effect of those structural differences more significant on students. My guess would be a lot of the parents who are here in this room tonight, you were reading with your kids and doing extra math with your kids and helping your kids during this time of COVID. Not every student in our district has that kind of resource at their disposal. So to the extent structural problems already existed, they got magnified. And so my role, I feel, as a board member is to take these different elements and do our best to find that middle ground of how do we not stress this system to the breaking point emotionally and by pushing the timeline too quickly. But then how do we also really address this equity? Because I think for all of us in the long run, when we are using those resources equitably, fairly, it benefits the staff, it benefits the kids. So I want to make sure that we pay attention to both sides.
The one takeaway I have, the first meeting of the task force, I think we all were breathing a sigh because it actually felt like this was something that had real promise. The second one, and this confusion came to me as well as it probably did to other people, was that we thought we had like 8, and I don't know where the number came from, that it was out there, 8 different choices. And when we met the second time, we only got 1. But understanding it now, it was one that had to do with just boundaries, and the other 4 were a variation of the same kind of thing, the blending of schools. So we technically had 2 choices, just different configurations in the other 4. So I had that explained to me because I was like, wait a minute, how did we jump to this one thing so quickly? But I think understanding that and also being prepared. not just jumping into it, but actually being prepared and doing it with fidelity, because we want to make sure that whatever change or whatever move we need to make, that it's not something that we rush into and like 2-3 months, years later, we're like, oh my God, this thing totally blew up in our faces, and what did it do? Because we didn't take the time to take the steps that we needed to make sure that parents were ready, teachers were ready, kids were ready. We have to do something. There is a need that something needs to be done. And I can see the positives in both ways that we go. So that's what I'm looking for in the next meeting, is to have more of that information brought to me, and being open and sharing it with everyone. And I know sometimes you're busy, your parents, you're busy, you've got kids and everything. So it's not the first thing that you think of to go to the website, but it's everything we've talked about is there. And we want parents to feel comfortable. Everybody's not going to be the happiest and feel the most comfortable at first. Change is hard. But once we see what's best for our kids, because that's what we all want in the long run, is what's best for our kids. Okay? I'm still wide open. I've still got my ears wide open.
So, meeting group number one was about meet and greet, kind of meet and greet and kind of talk about just the equity journey and stuff like that. Meeting two was talking about the options. What are meeting 3 and 4 from the task force going to be like?
Yeah. So the first meeting really did a broad overview, as well as, an introduction to the team and some general feedback. The second one was trying to get it narrowed down so that we could then go deeper into it, because meeting number 3, we really want to layer in, what does this actually look like if we were to run this? So we need real-time data and those boundaries to actually lay out, okay, how many class sections would that mean? Where would we be able to place all of our programming, and then look at it through an equity lens? But until we get to that one model to really flesh it out, it's hard to do that. So that's what we're hoping to do on Thursday the 22nd, get feedback, tweaks. We had some other suggestions even that came out that we're going to bring back on the 22nd from the last meeting. So that's where we will be focusing in our efforts for that one. And then hopefully leading to, what are the barriers, roadblocks, and plans and communication that we need to be mindful of as we build this recommendation and timeline, which will be the biggest part of how do we build a plan that can be successfully implemented. And then ultimately, this is a board decision. This will be a recommendation. What I said to the equity task force is that we're going to build towards a recommendation, but it is the board's decision. If we go forward with whatever the recommendation is, that will be then the path that we follow. If the board does not decide to do that and we maintain status quo, then we will have to look at those 8 areas and decide, what do we have internally that we could do to continue to address these? Because managing these, as I said, is from year to year, it is not sustainable from a managerial perspective at all.
How many programs did we move this year? I know we moved the ESL from Grove to Holmes.
We moved ELS. Was moved from Grove over to Holmes, and then we moved our portions of our dual language from Devonshire over to Frost, and then our kindergarten dual language from Brentwood, we had them begin their programs over at Frost as well.
Are these all new? When did all these things occur? Because I hadn't heard about this before.
We made that move for this current year. That's why we had the portables and made those moves.
That's all part of the
Yep,
portables.
that was all
and so
part of
forth.
that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So again, not moving groups of students has been a historical trend in District 59.
Okay, I'd just like to make one comment. I don't know anything about what's happening at the task force because I haven't been there, obviously. However, I've been on the board for decades, and I've never, ever recall that we used Cropper as the people in charge of a District 59 task force. And I'm wondering why that is, because in the first place, Cropper has been chosen by us to come in and look the situations over and tell us where there's going to be an influx of children and where there's going to be some vacancies in schools and so forth. That's their job, basically. They've never come to us before and presented a program like they did this time. Furthermore, we pay Cropper to do this. So if they're going to be in charge of our task force, are we paying them for this?
So Cropper is not in charge of the task force. They are partners in helping facilitate because they run data. They have data systems. They are partners. So I'm listed as a facilitator along with Cropper. And Patty and Courtney, you could speak to that as well.
Yeah, so Cropper is essentially a resource in the same way that, if in the task force meeting I have a specific question about curriculum, Susan is sitting there and I can go to Susan and say, okay, can you explain the curriculum piece? So Cropper is present because they're the experts on the demographic data, and they have also advise school districts. That's part of the professional work they do, advise school districts based on their demographic data. So that's what they're doing here, is serving as an advisor to us. They are able to generate the maps, the data. And so essentially they're providing us with the numbers for us to be able to make decisions with data.
They're doing far more than they ever have in the past. And I remember in 2016, we had to come in and do a program or whatever you want to call it for us, some work, and their predictions were wrong. They didn't come true at all. So they are not perfect. They are not all knowing. Yes, this is their job, but they're not all knowing. They don't have all the answers. And I personally think that the task force, having gotten all that we've gotten from Cropper and having them involved up to this point, I don't see why we need them anymore, and I don't see why we're spending the money to have them come to our meetings.
So,
Mardell, what they're also doing is they're bringing in, they're adding, if we have suggestions or something, they have been able to fit it into the different developments and see if it's a viable option. They're not running it. They're just sharing information that we ask them about and that they happen to put together. It's not like they're in charge of anything. And they're looking at data just like any other company like them would do. Sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong, but that's because you're predicting. When you're predicting, you don't have all the answers and the know-how to say, okay, I know for sure this is going to work. It's not always like that.
So, right. I mean, I think the key point is, like, whenever we look into the future, it's never going to be perfect. They can't account for the variables of who's going to decide to move into the neighborhood or who's going to decide to move out. But as we make these decisions, we need the best professional advice on these demographics we can get so that we're making decisions based on both the present state of data and what the best demographic statistics can show us, because we do have birth rates and we at least have some ability to extrapolate out what the population is going to be. And I think, Mardell, the distinction might be that we haven't engaged in an equity audit like this in the past that looked holistically at both programs and demographics. So I think that's a key reason why your use of Cropper in the past may not be identical to this use today.
Mm-hmm. The thing is that we are a school district. We have wonderful people in our district. We have the superintendent. We have the whole superintendent team who are all experts in whatever their field is. We have principals at every school who are experts in their own schools. We have the Board of Education, and we have so many people in the way of comments from parents, because they know what's going on with their children, and from the community because they are paying for this. They're paying for it with their taxes. I think we have a whole wonderful group, which we have had all the time that I have been on the board without having an outside organization like Cropper be part of it.
Well, let me add.
Please stop the applause.
Let me make a comment there, because yes, we have great people that work in our district. Yes, the administration team is doing the best that they can. Even with all of that, even taking all of that into account, each one of these little buttons that you see on the screen, when you click on it and it shows you the data, there's a parent that waits 66 minutes for their kid to come home from school today. Is that okay? Is it okay if it's not your kid? There's a teacher that's lesson planning for 30 kids. We're trying to figure out how does she or he, provide, the attention to the students that need it when they just don't have the time because they have too many kids in the class. Even with all of that, it's our job and the administration's job is to figure out how we can improve those things. So yes, Cropper's not making the decisions. He's not running the show, and it's like Patty said, we have to be all ears. We can't just build a school in a neighborhood and just let it grow on its own. We have to manage it and maintain it and figure out what can we do, if anything, to improve the lives of these kids, because that's the responsibility that's placed on us here. So it's not, like I said, I'm all ears, I'm listening. I need to see kind of the benefits. I need to see the data as to if this option were to proceed, this is the expected result from that option, in order for us to make a sound, reasonable decision. But I understand the concerns of the parents. I'm a parent myself. I think everybody here on this board, if the option that was presented were to be voted on, I think all of us, our kids would be impacted, and all of our kids would go to different schools as a result. So I need to look at it, like Courtney said, as a parent, but also I need to look out for that kid that maybe just doesn't have the loudest voice here in the district. So that's our job too.
The problem is that it sounds to me like equity is such an important word, and like, what have we been doing wrong for all the decades that I have been on the board, and since I moved into this village back in 1960? My children went to these schools, and they had some of the same problems while they were in the schools. Grove was overcrowded then. There were all kinds of the same problems currently that were in the schools when my children were in the schools. We worked on it as a district. The district worked very hard. Everybody in the district at every level worked very hard. And we had committees, and we talked and talked and talked and changed our minds and did different things, much like what was explained to us by Ron and Albert during the program before, during our meeting before. I just don't think that we need to go into all of this. If we have questions of Cropper, we can always ask them, but I don't think Cropper should be such an integral part of this committee. And I think there should be probably more people from the villages and more parents. And we have 2 people on the board, and I think that's probably sufficient because the board will be voting on it eventually anyway. We'll have to be talking about it. But if you don't have enough principals or you don't have enough assistant superintendents, maybe they should be on the board. Or teachers. We haven't even talked about the teachers. I don't even know, are there teachers on this committee?
Yes.
Well, maybe there should be more teachers.
So, Mardell, I'm going to ask.
The point is, I think
Mardell,
we as a district should be able to work together better.
Mardell, we have the task force. The task force has been determined. As for Cropper, I am thankful that we have a third-party person that's not invested in whatever we decide. We ask them a question, they give us the answer. We may not have that with the district. Nothing against the staff, but they're invested in it. They're invested in it. Cropper is not invested in it at all. They are a third-party, independent person. We ask data questions of, they provide the answers. Both Dr. Sager and I asked for a boundaries thing. A new boundary thing because we didn't think it went far enough. Mm-hmm. And they came back with something. Didn't ask anybody in addition. They looked at our demographic and our numbers. And that's how they did it. So I'm okay with Cropper. Now,
Are you
as for
okay?
Mardell, I've
All
let
right,
you speak.
go
I'm going
ahead.
to have my chance now. As for this equity audit and what we've done in the past, the district has changed dramatically, and the district has been putting Band-Aid upon Band-Aid upon Band-Aid. And as Dr. Brezhnev and I talked about, is we had moved 3 programs this year to try and address overcrowding and other things. Dr. Ludloff has put a slide together that has showed the numerous changes we put in these districts over the years. That is not sustainable in the future. We cannot keep doing that. So we need to look at something to prevent that from happening again that is flexible for the future growth of all our students in the district. What it is, I don't know. I really don't know what it is. And I haven't made a decision. I don't know what my decision is going to be. But I'm waiting to find out what the task force is going to do with the people that we selected. So I would like to see, we need to do something, because what we have going on, like as we point out, 66 minutes on the bus, a class of 9, a class of 32. Is that fair to the teacher of 9? Is that fair to the parents with their student a chance of a classroom of 32 where they're not getting as much individual attention as they may need or deserve? Can we balance that out? There's a lot that we need to look at. It's not just about Cropper. It's about the students of our district. That's who we're here to support, and that's who we're here to look out for. All the students of the district. Not just, those that we think, are the loudest voices or the quiet, as Mr. Mencia pointed out, those that don't have a voice. So with that, I've said my piece. I don't know where I'm going to go with this yet, but I do want to know, and I will be doing what's best for the students. What comes out of this? And I will be asking the hard question when we start getting stuff coming out.
Could I ask another question? What is the purpose of pairing? What problem did we have in our district that caused Cropper to come up with the pairing of schools? And where is that going to take us? What will it solve? What will it help?
I'll let you take that one.
So it's these areas that we identified here. We talked about enrollment. We have schools that are falling under enrollment, and that leads directly to the class sizes. So when you pair, you get economy of skills. You get greater number of students across a broader geographic region. Junior highs are a perfect example of a grade level center. There's 3 grade levels where they can program specifically for 3 grade levels, and we pull from broader geographic regions. So we have sustainable schools that we can section, we can balance out class sizes, we can have more sustainable staffing. Those are some of the reasons why pairing becomes an option in districts like ours, where we have these waning enrollments and we have broad geographic areas. That's where that came from. And that's not just specifically from him. It is a practice that is employed across other districts for similar reasons. So I don't want, tonight was an update. We have not gotten into all of that. I promise that on September 26th, when we have the committee of the whole, all of those things will be shared and discussed. I do want to say, regardless of how you feel about Cropper as a company, they are a tool that is able to run scenarios that we cannot do internally. We do not have the resources and the capacity to do that. Just like we hire architects, we hire people when we need to do plumbing. We don't do those things ourselves. We bring in experts as partners. But I will guarantee this, Mardell, because I agree with you. Whatever the recommendation comes before the board will be from this administration. Daisy, you had a question before we move on to our next agenda.
This is my point of view as a parent. Not because Cropper tells us something, we're gonna do it. Like we said, we're gonna make the decision, and it's not just because Cropper says pairing is an option, doesn't mean we're gonna do that. Okay, I just want to make that clear. They're just giving us suggestions on how we can probably make it better. We're not going to do what they tell us to do. We're the ones that are going to make that decision. Okay, just want to make that clear. They're just helping us guide us and what we can make it better, but we don't have to do what they tell us to do. Right? That's what I think.
Well said. And I think just one last note before we close out this agenda item that you mentioned the committee of the whole on the 26th. I know a lot of people here are here because of this issue, and a lot of people are watching the live stream because of this issue. So the committee of the whole meeting to the 26th is an open board meeting just like this one, where we don't take action, but do we have public comment at a committee of the whole? We do. So there is public comment at the committee of the whole. It can be attended. Will it be live streamed as well? So for those who are interested in this issue, that will be a meeting substantively focused on the equity task force and these items. And so please make note of that date.
And I think too, just to emphasize something for everybody here and the folks at home, a point that Dr. Bresnahan made of, let me see how to put it. Getting an option in place and then layering on top of that option. Once we have a viable option, layering on top of it a lot of the questions that I as a parent have and you as parents have with those details of how it will actually work. I know when I speak to a lot of parents in the district regarding this topic, that's a lot of the questions that they have of what time will school start and how am I going to handle this and what are we going to do about the PTOs and what am I going to do about parent teacher conferences, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Excellent questions, but it's kind of going step by step of seeing what options are on the table, if any, and then layering those details on top of that so we get more and more information to see if this is a good idea or do we need to tweak it. So that's kind of the important piece of the next steps.
Are there questions or comments from the board? Okay. Item 4.04, new and elementary junior high schedule updates.
Good evening. Purposeful and needs-based scheduling is a way that districts can increase student outcomes and equity, both developmentally and academically for students. In our equity audit, we identified creating consistent schedules at both the elementary and junior high levels as one of the ways that we could improve. We moved quickly to put plans in place to identify areas of improvement within schedules and to put those schedules in place last year. So we set out to improve our schedules at both levels, gathering many voices, a junior high committee, and soliciting feedback along the way. At the end of last year, we decided on those new schedules that would be consistent across our elementary buildings and across our junior high buildings. And this year we have put them in place. So this evening, Mrs. Savage and I will review features of the elementary schedule and junior high schedule, early successes, challenges, and next steps.
All right, we'll start with the elementary schedule features. The key features that we wanted to ensure that we put in place this school year was the expansion of specials to include separate music and visual arts programs. Previously, we had fine arts, which was a combination. Now we're allowing for that expansion so that students have the ability to have a music class and a visual arts class separate. In addition, we expanded PE to 3 times a week. In order to meet our state mandate, we currently had not been meeting that, and students were not having the opportunity to have PE at least 3 times a week. Another feature is there's more time for daily collaboration for elementary school teachers, 60 minutes a day, as opposed to what they previously had was about 40 minutes. So some of the early successes, it is having that separate music and visual arts options. We have a team of music teachers across the district, a team of visual arts teachers across the district who are excited and ready to collaborate, and they've been working on getting curriculum in place. Increased collaboration and focus on those content areas, as well as an opportunity for vertical alignment of curriculum and programming K-8. Now that we've extended that, we're working with our middle schools as well to work through the K-8 process for music, as well as visual arts to ensure the best programming. And expanded opportunities for physical education curriculum, K-8, with a solid scope and sequence that has been established for the new teachers to follow.
For our junior high schedules, one of our biggest priorities was to make sure that all junior high students experienced the same type of schedule and that we had consistency between all three. So some of the items that we have consistent at all of our junior highs are our start and end times, our daily check-in and check-out, which is time dedicated to make sure that students are ready to learn and transitioning in and out of the school day in an organized way. We have consistent instructional minutes for all of our content areas. We have increased time for social emotional learning, which is very important at our adolescent stages. And there are expanded opportunities for collaboration and planned time among our staff. Some of the early successes were in our resource distribution and our training for our staff. We are now implementing WIN, which stands for What I Need, time for every student. And we knew that we wanted to make sure that we came into the school year prepared with our resources and making sure our staff knew the plan for each option for WIN. So we had a summer WIN enrichment curricular team that came together to put together those resources. We also had our district MTSS team looking into intervention resources, selecting them, and planning for training. At the beginning of the school year, we used our opening days with staff to provide those resources and initial overviews. And our students engaged in the first 2 weeks of their WIN class, focusing around strategies for success at the middle level, organizational skills, how to transition into school effectively, behavioral expectations, digital citizenship, etc., were topics that students participated in while staff became better acquainted with their new resources for WIN time. In addition, our AVID teachers participated in training over the summer to prepare for AVID, which is Advancement via Individual Determination. And early on this year, we have facilitated consistent AVID family nights at all three schools and curriculum nights. To dive a little deeper into the WIN time, again, stands for What I Need, we have 3 offerings during WIN for students. Those offerings are Advancement via Individual Determination, AVID. Students were selected for AVID based on some of their achievement data as well as input from teachers, an interview process, and recommendations from the parent and the student. For enrichment, we have several options with the goal of exploration and exposure of a variety of content areas to our middle level learners. And for intervention, we have offerings at 2 different levels for both reading and math. And so students are chosen for intervention or enrichment based on their data, their assessments, and input from staff. Now, the process for determining which selection students will have is something that we will continue to revise as we go, as we build our assessment systems and can recommend students for more detailed and more specific needs.
We would like to take a moment to recognize a number of people who have been very involved in making these new schedules occur. First of all, the Board of Education for the approval of additional staff positions to enhance and provide equity in our programming. Building principals and assistant principals who worked extremely long hours on making the schedule functional for all of our students. Our assessment instruction department working on our WIN and planning, and our junior high AVID and enrichment teachers who participated in summer curriculum development as well as summer training. And this year, a huge shout out to our junior high teachers for their engagement and participation in opening day trainings and curriculum overviews across all content areas our first 2 days of school. So next steps. Really, this is a big shift to have all of these schedule changes, very positive student-centered schedules. So we are already seeing some celebrations with new scheduling. So we want to celebrate those and monitor how it's going. We also want to acknowledge and validate the challenges of change because, particularly at our junior high, it's a very flexible student-centered schedule. It is different from what staff have experienced. And so through working through that process, we're going to be gathering feedback as well this fall from our teachers, our families, and our students to figure out what revisions we might need to make to our block schedule in order to enhance it and make it work better and more efficient.
How soon are you able to make corrections? Like, I know PE at the different junior highs, their schedules are overlapping. So that to me is a big problem. Are the students getting, if they need help in both math and reading, are we able to take care of that need if they need both things, or are we doing one and they're left flapping for the other? So I'm kind of, it's a lot that we don't want to go off half-cocked and not have what we need for these kids, and then have to come back like 6 months later and say, okay, we've really screwed them up now. We only have 6 months, if it's an 8th grader, 6 months to fix them after all these years of them being broken because of how things were. And are we going to be able to do that? Because I mean, I get art and music are, you know, good for the soul, but I also know that if a student can't read or they're at a really low level, I can forego the other things because that's more important, that my child can function in reading and math. Does that make sense?
You want to speak?
Absolutely, yes. So one of the big recommendations in terms of middle level scheduling is to have flexible time built into the day, is to create a schedule that's sustainable because it has flexibility. And so that's what we've created with the What I Need time. It allows us to make student-centered decisions. So if a student needs intervention for both math and reading, we can determine that in first quarter they might take their math intervention so that they consistently can improve in those math areas and have time dedicated to it each and every day. And in second quarter, take a literacy intervention. And so they can move fluidly back and forth between the two. Sometimes overloading students with intervention can cause them to be less motivated because it is too heavy of a course load, and they also need those exploratory courses. So those decisions can be made on individual basis because we have the flexibility built within the schedule. So as our teams become better acquainted with the routines of the schedule with assessment practices as well, we will get better and better at mid-quarter looking at what revisions we need, how students need to move flexibly in and out of intervention that will best meet their individualized needs. So that is one of the ways that we can address that challenge if a student has multiple needs for intervention. And that can occur, as you said, throughout their middle level education. So we can really look holistically at the 3 years and what interventions may be needed and when we can focus more exploratory versus more academic acceleration.
Could I also add a little bit about the core? So to avoid high levels of students intervention, we want that solid core in place, which is what we're working about with our curriculum work. The 70-minute block is already providing release for teachers, allow them to meet the needs of the curriculum. For example, math, they have plenty of time to meet that lesson structure while also having time to differentiate within that block for their students in their class. The core resources that we're looking at for language arts have differentiated and scaffolds built in. So the core delivery with a 7-minute block is definitely going to benefit as well, elevating student skills. So we're looking at, both of these things happening right now concurrently.
So I just had a few questions. For the elementary schools, the block schedule is a little packed maybe in terms of getting kids from one side of the building to the other. Do we need more resources, hall monitors to walk kids around the buildings, that sort of thing?
So great question. It definitely is a different schedule with much more movement during those specials times because there's more opportunities for students to move. What I'm hearing through my investigation and visits and talks with staff are that the specials teams have been very proactive in identifying supports for how students move through the building. And the first few weeks it's been trial and error and they've been coming back. But what I'm hearing right now is it's going fairly smoothly, although it's taken the students a few weeks to get used to it. But now once they know where they're going, it's going quite well from what I've been hearing.
And for parents, specials used to be these ABC days that would rotate. And so the students had to know tomorrow's a C day, so I have to bring my gym shoes. Is it now Monday's a certain schedule, Tuesday's a certain schedule, or is it vary from school to school?
I'm not 100% sure if it's locked in by day. I think the rotation does go by day, but I'd have to double check that because I'm not 100% sure if we landed on the same at all elementary schools.
Oh, it may be.
It might be slightly varied based on the size, some of the differences in the size and stuff. They might have had different ways of structuring, but I could double check that.
Okay, and then I had a question on the win time for so we have the AVID group, which is identified, and then we have the other group, which you'll have to help me with.
The intervention.
The intervention group that's also identified. For the other students, you've got this group of various things that they can do. Who chooses what they do?
Well, right now, currently, the students who are going into the enrichment sections are going in based on the school's initial plans on what they're going to offer. So what we did this summer was we created a district menu of offerings that schools could select from. So based on which staff were going to teach enrichment, as this schedule unfolded, they identified a couple to begin with slowly, because we had a lot of movement with placing students in enrichment, placing students, getting AVID up and running. But now we have students in one or two, and the ultimate goal is that you're pairing staff courses of interest with student interest. So ideally, as we move forward and get used to the WIN enrichment process, students will be selecting what ones they would be interested in taking, and staff also have the ability, the building leadership team has the ability to submit proposals for what courses they would like to see, so that we'll have ideally a district menu, which will be more extensive than one we currently have, that has consistent elements such as a rubric, criteria, student learner criteria, but allows buildings to pick and choose which ones they might want to do, and that will allow for student choice. So currently at Grove, for example, they all started with one because it was a concern of the task force that they were prepared, that teachers felt prepared to teach it. So they started with one, so everyone's getting used to that. But then in October they're going to gather student interest to see what they might want to do, and then explore how they're going to get students into their interest choices for the next semester.
Yeah, I would just add an anecdote to that I have a sixth grader at the middle school, and he was put into the engineering design, and it is the same teacher as his science teacher, and the science teacher just expressed excitement about the engineering design because they're able to do sort of hands-on extensions of the science class. And the teacher also was just incredible and said, I'm in the process of developing ideas for a chemistry spinoff that's a crime lab enrichment offering. So I think one of the positives it's showing is that teachers are able to kind of bring some creativity and hands-on engagement to students that supplements the core curriculum.
We were really excited that we had the number of teachers interested. It was a very challenging year last year, but we had a number that came forward, excited to create these courses, and many of them created courses. There might even be teaching intervention as well. So there's a real collective effort on the part of the staff, which is nice. And once they see it going, they're getting other ideas.
You know what? I want to just jump back real quick for 1 minute. The kids that are getting the math, and you're saying you'll swap for reading the second quarter or semester?
It could be either. It's based on need.
Yeah.
And how will we know if it's successful? How will we know if these kids are succeeding or they need something more intense?
Sure. So there are various levels of intervention provided to our students, and there are different math courses and different reading courses based on that level of need. Those courses use different resources that are designed for different areas of deficit or areas of need. So each of the curricula used has progress monitoring built into it. So there's end of unit assessments. There's regular assessments that occur within the class that tell us if that child's making progress or not. And so in our response to intervention, if we saw that a student was not making adequate progress, we would make adjustments within the course. If those adjustments were not working, we may choose to go to another level of intervention with different resources that are more specific or more intense for that child's needs. We also may look at two interventions at the same time if there are really significant needs and we think that socially and emotionally that child can sustain that and work through that. So there's no if then when it comes to intervention. What there is a commitment to put intervention in place, determine how that child is responding to it, and make adjustments going forward based on whatever that may be. Now, this is something that we have to continue to expand and continue to help our staff and our community understand that we continuously assess, look at that child's response, and then we respond to the needs that we see in front of us. So there are lots of options that we can put in place. What we've done with the win time is we've looked at the commonalities that many of our students have in the area of reading, and we've chosen resources that are tailored to that common need. Similarly, commonalities within the area of math that many of our students needing intervention need, and we're teaching to that right now. We'll continue to expand those intervention options as we will the enrichment options, but we also wanted to balance for our staff a starting place and make sure that we could learn those pieces first, get them in place, get them solid before we introduce more.
And my only concern is that calendar keeps going, and especially with 8th graders.
Yes.
You have a limited time with them.
Absolutely.
And we don't want to send them off to high school and beyond deficient in the things that they need the most. So
definitely,
I'm hoping we're checking on a frequent basis to make sure that we give them all the tools that we can possibly give them. Okay, I just know how many of them fall by the wayside before. And some of them that are still there, and I don't want to keep leaving them behind.
And I think this is that is at the heart of why this schedule really changed, so that we could focus on our core, get less kids in tier 2, tier 3, and then have a way and have flexibility within a schedule so that those kids didn't have to make choices out of other areas, but have that time built in so that they could get the interventions that they need, which I think is a really big step forward.
Thank you.
And also, Ms. Petrielli, to go back to your previous question, I'm sorry, I went right into the intervention answer. We have already made adjustments to the schedule. So we have already had our principals in communication with teachers. Hey, this isn't working. Let's adjust this. Let's tweak this timing. So we are committed to the model of the schedule that we have in a flexible hybrid block. We are already making adjustments on the day-to-day and how we make it work really well for students and staff.
And the teachers are getting all the resources they could possibly need for all of this. They don't have to create anything.
They are not creating.
Okay.
Well, I just kind of took my question away. I was going to say, I know it's been only a couple of weeks, and I'm assuming it's not all perfect. We're having challenges, but we're addressing the challenges as they come along.
Correct.
And then we're identifying them. We may not fix it right away, but we're making aware that these are issues and we're trying to work on them.
Correct.
Okay. So next year we'll have some minor tweaks to the schedule, or are we just doing the tweaks right now?
Some are right now, some may be bigger, and we'll have to do a little more research and studying first. But either way, I think we'll just continue to make adjustments until we see it meeting the majority of the needs.
There was a team that kind of looked at the scheduling, right? Is there plans for that team to meet again and kind of revisit and talk about things they can bring back from their classrooms and stuff?
I think our focus for next step in feedback is to solicit feedback from all of the junior high staff and families and students,
and
which
the junior
that
and the
team would
elementary
be
too, right?
included in. Yes.
Okay. And then my last question seems kind of trivial, but we talked about gym being 3 times a week now. And now with they split up music and art, are they getting 3 times as well? There's all LRC time in there as well. How much are those students meeting in those classes?
It's 1 time a week for art, 1 time a week for music, and then 3 times a week for PE, and 1 time a week at LRC. And again, it's really challenging because we have it all based on sections per grade level in order to make it all work, which varies greatly from building to building.
Because that's 60 5 days a week, so I'm assuming there's some doubling up somewhere along the way. Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments?
So I think I'd just like to ask, for the enrichment, the curriculum is provided to teachers as well for each of those options?
Yes, that is correct. So the teachers that worked on it this summer created a full curriculum that includes learning targets, alignment to standards that were relevant, as well as a rubric that they created that are consistent across all the schools. At the beginning of the year when they met, the teachers that created the curriculum had chance to meet with the teachers who were going to be teaching that and walk them through that. All those curriculum are in our curriculum documents folder, just like any of our other curriculum would be for math, science, etc.
And I know it's enrichment, but is there spots for us to hide academic gain in there, like vocabulary and when you're doing newspaper? Or
that's
when you're
actually,
doing the
I
STEM?
actually have to tell you that one of the non-negotiables was academic vocabulary had to be a key component of all the enrichment courses. That's something that I feel very strongly
Okay,
about.
And there's some curriculum structure to that
Yes.
has that in it.
Yes.
Okay.
And in addition, the building leadership team will also identify the needs and see how they go and continue to enhance those courses. This won't be the last iteration of an enrichment structure. It was just our first. It'll continue to develop as we go through the process.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan and Katie. Item 5.0, comments and suggestions from the public. Yep. Before we begin public comment, I need to read a statement. This is the point of the meeting where we welcome public comments. This is a regularly scheduled Board of Education meeting. The purpose of the meeting is for the board to properly address the items on the agenda publicly as required by the Open Meetings Act. To allow board time needed to address all the agenda items, we ask you please limit your comments to 3 minutes. A board member will serve as timekeeper and will give the speaker notice when there are 30 seconds remaining to allow the speaker time to complete or summarize their thoughts. Public comment during a business meeting is a time for the Board of Education to listen to comments from the public. But this is not a time for two-way discussion between the board and the public. Please understand that the board will not ask nor answer questions. If you have questions or wish to have a response on an item, please submit your comments in writing and the superintendent will follow up with a response. We also want to remind you, those that are in attendance, that this meeting is being video live streamed. The video meeting will also be archived and available for viewing after the meeting has adjourned. For those of you sharing a public comment, please be mindful that you are being broadcast live and your comment will be included in the video archive. We'll be limiting comment to 1 hour tonight, correct? Okay. So we have 4 individuals on the people that have asked to speak. We just ask you to say your name and what community you're from. The first person is Sarah Sundquist. And if I say a name wrong, I'm sorry.
Hi, my name is Sarah Sundquist. I come from the Clearmont School. My children are the 3rd generation in this district to attend, my children are 3rd generation in my family to attend District 59 schools. I attended Byrd School, Grove Junior High, Elk Grove High School, and completed my bachelor's degree from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. I'm a Girl Scout leader for the children in our community. I also volunteer as a coach for the Elk Grove youth sports teams. I serve on the PTO at Clearmont Elementary. I'm very passionate about children, their education, safety, and welfare. My husband and I recently purchased our home near Clearmont. School ratings and proximity to our local elementary, junior high, and high school played a major role in our decision-making process to purchase our home. I can share with absolute certainty that many families that attend Clearmont have chosen their home for similar key factors. I realize that our district needs to make changes to create equity in our school district, and I'm open-minded about grade level centers and really wish to hear more about how this type of learning environment will contribute to the academic success for all kids in our district. What will the curriculum look like? How does dual language fit into the grade level centers? How will grade level centers improve education for the kids that struggle? How will grade level centers work with students that are moving ahead at a pace that exceeds the grade levels for their school? For example, if you have a 1st grader that reads at a 3rd or 4th or 5th grade level. As I review each of the proposed options, I've considered the potential impact on my own family. Many of these options include putting my children on buses when we live a block from our school. Knowing that there's a bus driver shortage, do I have to worry that my children will be sitting 3 to a seat and on the floor of a bus? This is rumored to already be happening not in our district, but in a community not far from ours. I have considered option 1 and have asked myself, what do I do with regard to transportation for my children? Would I walk my 8-year-old to school or wait at the bus stop with my 6-year-old? How will what I choose impact my children both socially and emotionally? How will pickups work if I'm needing to pick up 2 children under 10 from separate schools at the same time? Will we lose all sense of community and connection to other families because we're now rushed to get to different places and kids can no longer enjoy time at their school's park following the school day? Stopping at the park after the school day has become part of our daily routine and something our children look forward to at the end of each day. One of the major issues I believe the board
30
in this community is
seconds.
trying to solve for the capacity issue at junior high. Right now, where we stand today in this beautiful new building, once stood a junior high. Was this decision to eliminate this junior high that once stood here made in haste? And was this based off a Cropper data study? My request to the school board is to please make sure plans for our children's future are well thought out and implemented slowly. Please consider the safety of our youngest members of our family. And please consider the impact to siblings who became extremely close during COVID. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Michelle Hickok.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Hitchcock. I have 2 children who currently attend John Jay in the 4th and 1st grade dual language program. I've been attending curriculum meetings since my son was in kindergarten. This year, District 59 is piloting a new literacy curriculum. This is urgently needed, as currently we are still using Lucy Calkins and the learning experiences, which has failed to provide students the foundation they need to be successful for life. I would urge the board to ensure that any new literacy curriculum chosen by the administration includes spelling, grammar, vocabulary, and a rigorous writing component in addition to phonics and reading instruction. These foundational skills are glaringly absent from the current curriculum and are foundational to the understanding of language. When a new literacy curriculum is finally chosen, the implementation should also include a coherent plan to catch up children who have not been receiving this instruction. The current implementation of new math curriculum relies on a 3-year improvement plan, allowing the district to offload all junior high students into high school without any solid plan to bring 6th to 8th graders to grade level. By the end of the 3-year plan, the district math numbers may have improved, but the students in 6th to 8th grade during this time will have been failed by this system. This allows the district to avoid accountability for students most impacted by the academic failures of the experimental learning experiences implemented over the last 10 years. We have been hearing a lot about equity these last few months. If you want to actually achieve equity and make a difference in the lives of students, you should be addressing the issues in the junior high where the most harm has been done. In regards to grade level centers, all the administrators appear to be doing is rearranging people so that the numbers look better on their spreadsheets. If this is something that District 59 wants to implement, we, the public, need much more transparency about the process. What is the reason that such a disruptive change is required, and how exactly will it benefit students? Frankly, we don't need you to improve school performance by rearranging children. We need you to improve student performance by educating them. Thank you.
Ryan Buchler.
Hi, my name is Ryan Buchler. I'm the parent of 2 kids at Salt Creek and 1 at Grove Junior High. I'm also a product of the District 59 schools, having gone to Salt Creek and Grove as well. First of all, I want to thank the board for volunteering and all your hard work. I serve on the Elk Grove Zoning Board of Appeals, so I can appreciate all the hours and the time that you put in, so thank you. My family opposes your plan to create multi-grade level centers. This plan is going to create a burden on families, especially those with multiple children. So if a parent needs to drop their kids off at before care or after care, that's one extra stop that they're going to have to take to before their workday. And I know about my house, it's kind of hard to get the kids out. That's just one extra thing that needs to be done. I also question the transportation costs. You've got half the neighborhood that is now going to one school and the other half that's going to the other school. Now, we just heard all these presentations and everyone had a social emotional learning component in it. And I know it was talked about, oh, well, we can, combine teachers and classes so we could have, an even number. Well, at what cost? This is not good for my kids' social emotional learning. So my fourth grader said, Dad, I don't want to change schools. I like my school. I want to do patrol for kindergarten next year, and I won't be able to if there's no kindergartners in my school. Don't do it. What research has been done to show that grade level centers improve student achievement? What about a district that's this size? Has this happened before? Has the committee gone and visited these other districts or talked to them about how this is going to work out? I also question the district's decision to handpick the selection committee. One member is an employee that I know of in District 59 and a parent in District 59. Are they able to speak out against this plan at the meetings that are going on? And I know Superintendent Dr. Brestrahan spoke, and she mentioned that she was putting the website in Spanish, in English, other languages, I believe you said, for that. That's great. But my question is, why hasn't that been done throughout this process? Maybe
30 seconds.
Maybe it has. So that way, things can be interpreted for our Polish community, Spanish community, so that all stakeholders can be aware of what's going on. I also question the need of the demographer. We've got tons of talented administrators here. They can do their study. Most of the time they're wrong, has been my experience. And then I know I only have a few seconds. Next time, I'd appreciate having the public comment come earlier. I'm a teacher as well. I've got 3 kids as well, and I have got a lot to do. So thank you. Don't do it.
If I pronounce this wrong, I'm sorry, but Mimosa Uno? Did I get that right? Okay, thank you.
So at the last meeting, I also spoke up. My name is Mimosa Uno. I'm a parent of a student who goes to Ridge. We live in Oak Grove Village. And through this process, I'm still not hearing, and I had implored that, again, with the data, it only gives you quantitative, right? Not necessarily qualitative information like best practices that are done. My understanding is at this last task force meeting, really only it's kind of, you mentioned it, where it appeared that it seemed like even though there's a whole plethora of choices or options, that really the focus is on option 1. And I'm looking at the data sheet, the fact sheet that was provided that gives various options, and it looks like option number 4 has kind of the most benefits. So then that also begs the question of really, because none of us have seen it, where we're trying to understand, well, what's the benefits? What's the outcome of these options? How is it the most equitable, right? And for what areas does it address? I'm not seeing it yet. It's still really confusing. So I think if you want to have community buy-in, you got to do a better job of explaining this. I don't understand why it takes about 3 or 4 task force meetings to have that come out. And then the last part I want to say is that it was kind of appalling for me that as parents, we kind of, hang around the playgrounds, right? Talk to people in our neighborhoods, and a lot of families do not know this is happening. The word equity journey, it's fancy. It sounds like it's really more, for me, it was more financial based, but there's obviously much more to it. And I have to say the majority of parents they still don't have any idea this is happening. I know that there was a committee put together to do community outreach. While it sounds like they've done some good stuff, the news is not going to the demographics that it seems like we're most trying to help elevate. So
We have some issues with that, and I'm hoping that there's more that's happening with this task force, because it sounds like even though it's put together thoughtfully, it doesn't sound like they still really have much of a say. So in this process, thank you.
Thank you. Has anybody else come to speak before the board?
My name is Nicole Kitzinger. I live here in Elk Grove. I have 2 kids that attend Ridge, a 4th grader and a 2nd grader. So we're being told that this is all about equity and demographics, but the draft changes that are being proposed shows that they're still busing a whole demographic community 5 miles away, because that's where the program is, instead of having the programming in the school closest to their community. I guess my hope just is that the board will allow more time to gather information rather than rushing to a decision that could affect us by as soon as next school year. Hurried decisions like, for example, what's happening right now is moving teachers and kids from Devonshire to Frost, and the mobile classrooms still are not there. We hurried up and added more art and PE to the schools, and then we couldn't find enough qualified candidates to fill those spots, and they were being filled by substitute teachers. Also, those jobs are no longer posted on our website, so I'm wondering if they are filled or if they're not, because I'm pretty sure at Ridge they're not. And now the school pairings, it seems like the kids from the east side will still be bused to Bird, not solving any of the long bus ride equity issues. And Dr. Bresnahan said that we will use this year's data to make decisions about programming and how can we put a plan in place for the next school year before we even have the data for this year. And to Ms. Schumacher's point of the building of the task force, do the demographics of our task force even meet the demographics of our district? We brought up at previous meetings that we would love to have some non-English speaking folks from our community, and not one is on the task force. There are people that are bilingual, and that's fantastic, but there is not one person on that task force that does not speak English. It would have been great to have someone in and get a translator and have those people be able to go back to their communities and express in their home language what is going on in this room. They cannot watch this meeting and understand what is going on. They cannot be involved in this conversation at all. As far as the elementary schools go, my child does not have a single day in the school week that's consistent. In our building, Ridge, it is 2 times a week for art, 2 times a week
30
for music,
seconds.
2 times for the hub and LRC, and 3 times a week for PE. That's 270 minutes a week. I think that's it. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thought there was a couple other. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Melissa Redmond, and I have 5 kids in the district. I have 3 at Bird and 2 at the middle school at Grove. And I know not every family is like mine, but it's very hard to know that you're going to have 5 schools to deal with. And that is heartbreaking. I mean, our kids have been through, hell and back these last 2 years. And now we want to throw this at kids and families. That is not what we should be doing. We should be looking at their social emotional learning. My daughter, who's in 5th grade, really helps these little kindergartners out that have special needs and that are just lost, and she thrives on that. And they see that we're ready to take that away from them. They just started building communities, being finally back at school. And you guys are talking about equity. What about equity when we were only here for like 5 hours a day, 4 days a week, when other districts are open full-time, full days? That was a big problem. I'm a teacher, so I know that. What about equity where our special ed kids were not allowed in the buildings at our lowest risk kids? My son is one of those kids. Where at my district, we let those high-risk kids in the building day one. So there's equity for you. You mentioned about the busing. Well, my son, he needed a reading program, and I was denied it in the district for 3 years until I said I'm going to follow due process. Then all of a sudden, their eyes opened. I had to fight like for everything to get my son what he needed. Now he finally has it in finally 6th grade, and he's making growth. So you're talking about curriculum, you're talking about equity. Why don't we talk about what happened 3 years ago? But no, now let's focus on it. And did you ever survey parents and see what they would like? Did you ever survey them and see what this is affecting them the most? I mean, I'm sorry, most of you on the board, this is not going to affect your family. So you have one child or just one in middle school, and that's not going to be affecting you. And you have to really kind of look at the overall picture. And I also hope you realize that a lot of kids are in the district that are living here, but they do not go to 59 schools because of the lack of a curriculum and the lack of all transparency. Like we just said, you don't even have people on the board that's on this committee that speak other languages. They're going to private schools or other districts because of that issue. And the home values are going to go down. The only one who's going to buy my size house are people with families. And this is going to drastically lower the home values. And then where is that going to get you? It's a big issue. So I know that something has to be done. Yes, we have to redistrict because it's not fair that you have, 9 kids in one class and 20 something in the other. So yes, something has to be done, but doing these grade level centers is not the answer. Working on curriculum that is like standard based and is going to help these kids learn and bridge this big gap that's been created. That's what you need to focus on first. Not mixing everybody up after they just got through 2.5 years of craziness.
Thank you. Come on up.
I am Deb Benke. I am a resident of Elk Grove. I'm actually a task force member representing RID. This is okay. Thank you. Sorry. This is comments and suggestions from RID parents and other parents from schools. So I'll slightly go over 3 minutes. It's been previously mentioned that Ridge being a school of choice is not equitable, but it is not the only school of choice in the district. There are 3 other schools that are, due to offering dual language programs. Ridge offered more than just a balanced calendar. They had curriculum-based intersessions, was the first to offer full-day kindergarten, had an 8 to 4 school day, had low-income students, had a dual language program, and staff trialed and rolled out curriculum for the district. All that was stripped away from the school by the previous administration, except for the calendar. Keep Ridge. Make it a home school. Current enrollees and subsequent siblings would be grandfathered in. Add 1 additional section per grade, making the school have 3 sections per grade level. This is our compromise. Grade level campuses are not what the community wants. The majority feel having a K-5 level campus fosters a role model mentor relationship, which is beneficial for all students. The focus should be on curriculum and programming. Families have and will pull out their students from the district to enroll in private schools or move to a different district. I walked my neighborhood for an hour and a half on Saturday. Only 3 families I spoke to were aware of the proposed draft, and that was solely due to being a district employee. School rankings are important. It's what families look at when deciding to move into a community. Ridge is currently the highest ranked school in the district. Look into why and apply that to the other schools in the district. Suggestion is to look into building a South Side ELC onto Byrd. The district has the resources, and there appears to be enough land to have the same setup as homes in the North Side ELC. I found an article from the AASA, the School Superintendents Association, which was founded in 1865. Their mission statement advocates for equitable access for all students to the highest quality public education and develops and supports school system leaders. The article is about figuring and reconfiguring grade spans and discuss schools in New York, Texas, Washington, Colorado, Alabama, and Ohio in urban and rural districts. The last paragraph of the article is what I would like to close with. This is a quote. You can put the middle school sign over the door. You can put the grade configuration in place, but that doesn't make it a middle school, says McEwen, professor of curriculum and instruction at Appalachian State University. I was an elementary and middle school principal, so I lived that K-8 life pretty personally. When you looked at educating, it's not necessarily the grade configuration. It's what you're doing in the classroom that's developmentally appropriate. The district needs change, absolutely. But what is being proposed is not it. The board is in place to represent the community. Please listen to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else come speak before the board?
Hi, everyone. My name's Sarah Zach. I've been a resident of Elk Grove for 6 years. I have 2 children. One is set to start kindergarten in the district the next year, and he is cute as a button. I'm here because I really have major concerns about the proposed redistricting and the school pairing plans. First of all, I feel like much of the community is totally unaware of the proposed changes. Those who do know have a lot of valid, logical questions about the logistics of these plans and whether the plans will actually produce a more equitable district long term. And they feel that their questions have not been answered. Please play a more active role in community outreach. Every citizen deserves to know about the proposed changes, especially those with school-age children. And unfortunately, most people just don't. You need to hear more feedback than from just the parents on the equity committee and at these board meetings. I believe District 59 parents are open to a new way of doing things and certainly welcome changes that will improve our schools and create equity that will benefit all of our students. We just want to make sure that it's the right plan, and we want to feel like we're actively involved. My main reason for addressing you tonight is I want to plead with you not to approve any plan that closes or repurposes Ridge, which is present in, I think, all of the plans besides the straight redistricting plan. To do so would give parents in the community even fewer choices for their children's education. When my husband and I moved to Elk Grove 6 years ago, the success of the schools was a major factor in our decision. Since we've moved here, our neighborhood school academic performance has rapidly declined, and it's now the worst performing elementary school in town. I was looking forward to choosing Ridge as an alternative, but now that door appears to be closing as well. If Ridge is repurposed, I would consider leaving a town that I love in order to give my children an opportunity for a better education. I guarantee that I am not the only one. Enrollment will go down as a result of some of the proposed changes, especially the decision to effectively close its highest performing elementary school. To put it bluntly, closing Ridge is a bad decision. It actively hurts the community, the district, and the kids. Please give parents the opportunity to choose Ridge during this period of transition. One last thing about me, before I was a stay-at-home mom, I was a teacher. I taught English in a public high school for 7 years. One thing I learned during this time is that if you ever want to know how to solve a problem in your schools, you should
30
ask
seconds.
the teacher. They're on the ground every day. They know the students. They know their challenges. They know who needs help and how to help them, but they're often just not empowered to do anything beyond what they can accomplish on a daily basis in their classrooms. Get more input from them on this plan. They will give you the answer. And Dr. Bresnahan, I know that you said you have 18 comments on the website. That means that clearly people do not know the beautiful website is there. So we need to figure out how to get more people involved in this process.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else come and speak before the board? All right, we'll move on to, we'll close public comments. We're on to item 6.0 consent agenda.
Would you like me to make the motion?
Hold on, give her a few seconds.
I move for the approval of consent.
Mardell, hold on for a second.
Oh.
Okay, Mardell, thank you.
Ready? Okay. I move for the approval of the consent agenda items number 6.01 ABC, 6.02A, 6.03 ABC and D, 6.04 acceptance of recommendations, human resources, A, B, C.
Hey, Mardell, I have
D.
to interrupt you. I'm sorry. I need to pull the human resources report.
What are you pulling?
I need to pull the human resource report. Item 6.04.
6.04?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
A, B, C, or D, the whole thing?
Yeah, just start over. Yeah, it's everything but 6.04.
Okay. So go from 603 to 605?
Yeah.
Okay. And items not 6.04, but instead 6.05, approval to destroy 18-month-old or other closed sessions.
Do a second.
Second.
Questions, comments? Roll call.
Lang.
Aye.
Mencia.
Aye.
Petrelli, aye. Reed.
Aye.
Sager.
Aye.
Schumacher.
Aye.
And Espino.
Aye.
And the motion passes.
Can we get a motion on consent agenda 6.04?
I'll do it. Be it resolved that on the 12th day of September 2022, the Community Consolidated School District 59 Board of Education approves the following human resource items. Certified contracts, B, ESP salary notifications, C, cameo salary notifications, D, non-negotiated retirement, E, certified resignations, and F, ESP resignations. And G, oops, sorry.
H, I, and J.
G, leave of absence. And H, admin teacher salary benefits report, I, salary compensation report, and J, salary compensation report.
Question, you wanted 6.04 withheld,
Yeah.
but the whole thing or which part of it?
So I'm just going to withhold the whole thing.
The whole thing.
I have nothing. I want to support it, but
Okay.
I have a friend being hired, a friend of the family being hired.
Okay.
Second.
Second by Dr. Sager. Questions, comments? Roll call.
Mencia. Aye. Petrelli, aye. Reed.
Abstain.
Sager.
Aye.
Schumacher.
Aye.
And Espino.
Aye.
And Lang.
Aye.
And the motion passes.
Thank you. Item 7.0, prepare 2022 tax levy and set the date. Mr. O'Connor.
You waited a long time, didn't you?
I'm back. So the discussion item 7.01 is what we do every single year. It is the tax levy and set date for this year. We are going to do a truth in taxation like we do every year just to ensure that the public knows what is going on with what we are asking for. Keep in mind, we are levying, which means it's what we ask for. The extension is what the county gives us. So the district is at that point. So we are going to prepare it, and then we'll announce the public hearing date would be November 14th, 2022.
Mm-hmm.
It's that time of the year again to be preparing the next budget for next year. So we are going to ask to have action on that next meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, again, that's another one that is a legal piece that we have to do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry? Oh, no, I wasn't. No.
Mr. Reed, can you put your microphone on, please?
Thank you. Sorry. Item 7.03.
Wait, before we jump into that one, with 702, how do we factor in any potential changes in the district with preparing the budget for next year?
There are going to be a lot of variables that we are going to have to prepare for that we are already looking at.
Mm-hmm.
So we will have variety of, just like any other year, having things lined up and prepared that if something were to come in, we put in another variable. If not, we pull it out.
Sure.
Yeah, we've been working on it.
Mm-hmm. This budget's not going to be finalized until July, right? We approve it in July.
Oh,
correct?
even after that.
Even after that.
Yeah.
So we'll kind of know the direction, whatever decided, and that includes what we're planning for facility projects next summer too.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, we did it in August this past year.
7.03, authorizing intervention at the Property Tax Appeals PTAB for assessment of appeals.
So after talking with our attorneys, rather than ask every single year to go to the board and go to the attorneys to ask for the property tax appeals, we would like to just codify it so that Forensic PC will review those cases and we do not have to get it approved every single year. Instead, they're going to be our official person or group until we find someone otherwise, if that's what happens. But again, the whole point of this is that the district does fight any sort of property tax appeals that are a large amount, particularly for the companies that are within the boundaries, because if we were not to, the district gets its money regardless, and then the money and the burden of those taxes would fall onto property tax owners who are residents. So we're doing that to protect them.
And I guess whether we continue with them would also be tied to just 214 use them, and to the extent that we partner, is that like if 214 were to change, we would theoretically think about changing.
We would think about it for sure. The fact that 214, we use the same group, just like you said, Ms. Lang, and we split costs when it affects us both.
Thank you, Mr. O'Connor. 8.0 action items. 8.01 adoption of the budget fiscal year 2022-2023, A, B, and C. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion on this one. Whereas the Board of Education of Community Consolidated School District 59, Cook County, Illinois, has caused to be prepared in tentative form a budget for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2022, and the secretary of this board has made the same conveniently available for public inspection for at least 30 days prior to the final action thereon. And whereas due notice that said tentative budget was available for public inspection has been given full compliance with the law, and whereas a public hearing was held as to such budget on the first day of August 2022, notice of said hearing having been given at least 30 days prior thereto as required by law, and all other legal requirements complied with, and be it resolved that on the 12th day of September 2022, the Community Consolidated School District 59 Board of Education does authorize sections 1 and 2 as set forth in this motion.
Second. I'll second. Questions, comments?
I need glasses.
There you go.
There we go.
Roll call, please.
Petrielli, aye. I think I'm on me. Reed?
Aye.
Sager?
Aye.
Schumacher?
Aye.
Espino?
Aye.
Lang?
Aye.
And Mencia?
Aye.
And the motion carries.
Item 8.02, approval of book donation from Mrs. Janice Krinsky to CCSD59. Do you have a motion?
I can make it. Be it resolved that on the 12th day of September 2022, the Community Consolidated School District 59 Board of Education accepts the book donation totaling $1,896.71 from Ms. Krinsky for student use. Be it further resolved that the superintendent shall communicate to Ms. Janice Krinsky in writing, expressing the appreciation of the members of the Board of Education, and that this donation shall be listed in the official minutes of this meeting.
Excellent. Yep. I will second. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, I'll second that one. Mm-hmm.
Questions, comments?
Nope. Janice, thank you if you're out there listening to us on YouTube. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Roll call, please.
Reed?
Aye.
Sager?
Aye.
Schumacher?
Aye.
Espino?
Aye.
Lang?
Aye.
Mencia?
Aye.
And Petrielli, aye. And the motion passes.
Thank you. Item 9.
Mr. Reed, can you turn your microphone back on? Sorry.
Dang it. Item 9.0, superintendent reports. I will turn this over to Dr. Bresnahan and your staff.
All right, I am going to turn it directly over to our SLT members to give their updates around our strategic plan work.
I'm going to go ahead and kick things off, focused on assessment and accountability. So last Friday, we finished our benchmarking period for this fall for reading and math. We'll be working on organizing that data, moving it into the branching mind system so we get an idea of our tier system. Tomorrow, actually, we'll start to preview some of that district-wide data with our administrators, and we're already digging into that piece. As we project out of when we bring that data to the board to share, looking at the October meeting, knowing there's some budget pieces, but some serious discussions around the discussions earlier, we were thinking we would move that to November and then tie in also the state accountability data, the school report card, and do that all at once in November if the board is okay with that. We'll still put the presentation together and share that out with the board when we're ready to go in the next few weeks, so you'll have it in advance, but then we'll share it publicly in November if we're okay with that.
So like in the Friday update, it'll be shared in the Friday update?
Down the road, we just finished,
Yeah.
but yes,
Like
we'll
they said, like
share
2 or
it
3
out
weeks,
that
yeah.
way. And then if questions come in, and that actually would help inform us as we present out. But that's our thinking right now. Of course, we have some time to consider that. The other piece we want to share, as you know, we move forward with a data dashboard, Decision Ed. We are running into some unintended roadblocks in moving that process forward. From an external piece, the district has moved forward as much as we can. We've organized the data, I've had many meetings with the group, but we're really running into some server issue where we accumulate the data through that process. So it is something we continue to work on and are considering some additional conversations with Decision Ed beyond our consultant and our local person. So we are moving forward with some, I can't remember the right word, but we have some temporary servers. So we have some access. We're moving forward with that, but the longer, bigger picture, there's some roadblocks that are blocking our way.
Is this a problem with Decision Ed not being able to extract the data from the servers, or?
No, the part of this whole process and really the setup is about ensuring our data can flow easily to Decision Ed. Because we're a Skyward-based district and they've worked with many of these companies, most of those issues have been resolved and dealt with over the course of the summer. This is really who's going to hold the data. So as we went through the process, basically any group we work with, they hold the data externally. Decision Ed does not do that. And that has caused an issue. It's a lot of data. It's a lot of data connected to students. It's something we've moved away from and every district has. And so we've been struggling with where and who can we work with to hold that data that makes the most sense for us and keeps our data as safe as possible for our kids and staff.
What do you mean by hold the data? Maybe it's some clarification on that, please.
Host.
Like store it.
Like hosting
Host.
it?
Host, sorry. Hosting is better.
We can't internally host it?
It would require some additional security features. Our current practices are to host outside of the district. That is our protocol. We do not currently host anything internally with our data.
Yeah, it's like you pay the experts to host and protect it and make sure that it can't be data breaches and things.
All right, thank you.
All right, with a focus on curriculum clarity, right now our junior high language arts teachers are in the midst of their pilot process, and you can see the resources that are outside. They're available. Communication went to the junior high families that they're available for viewing. So they're starting with Amplify. They're switching to Study Sync early October. So all of the junior high ELL teachers are working on that, and that's going very smoothly so far. Our K-8 ELAs, SLA staff, our committee that's built from our Literacy Council is actually just finishing up viewing 9 demonstrations from potential vendors to make recommendations for which ones they'd like to see go forward for actually piloting. And then from there, we'll get into more details about the piloting process with the K-5 staff. So math, we're now into year 2 of our implementation. So our math implementation team met last week. Tomorrow, we're going to be meeting with our administrative team to really review that, reflect on the goals, look at our data around math. And I do have to share a celebration that one of the earliest comments made was what we were really hoping to hear is that from our teachers is that they are seeing a difference immediately in student readiness as they enter units because they're familiar with the material from the previous years and their retention has been strong. So that was our initial celebration with the team, but I'd like to share that anecdote because we had worked very hard on that last year. So the year 2 plan is responsive math instruction. That's we're now getting more into the assessment to drive instruction, whereas last year was use of curricular resource. We now have a council focused on social science. We are just at our final stages of bringing that group together, and they are going to be meeting next week with team from our district office, as well as a consultant from North Cook who's going to work through some standards work with that team. And then we'll have after school sessions as well. And then that team will determine if they want to look at our current resource further or look at other options as well. So that will be ongoing this school year. Let's think. AVID, we've talked about that. I think one last thing to note is that we are going to be beginning our Polish dual language. I mentioned that in the update last week to the board. Polish dual language program review. We're going to begin that process. We're going to extend our work with our Adelante specialists, gathering similar information as we did. That will provide us with information around what strengths we have, and what we need to do to improve our Polish program. Oh, and one last reminder, our Curriculum Resource Committee is going to be meeting on Thursday, September 29th. It was originally the week before, but we've pushed it back because we have our last equity task force that day. So I will be reminding everybody involved via email, as I typically do, of that date.
All right. There are several updates for Goal 2, the inclusive learning environment. As you heard earlier this evening, there's a lot of focus right now on feedback for the junior high schedule. So we are working with our administrators on how we best collect that feedback and then utilize that to make adjustments right now and in the future. With that comes the evaluation of new intervention resources. So we are planning for continued professional learning to build upon what we did at the beginning of the year with teachers for intervention resources at junior high, so we can continue to have coaching available to teachers. There's drop-in options as well as planned options for our math and our reading interventions. We also will be layering on the best ways to assess, to progress monitor, and to utilize that data to make decisions, as we talked about earlier, for student assignment into WIN placement courses. With the benchmark data coming now, we will also be tiering our students. So Branching Minds gives us those recommended tiers for math, for reading, and for social emotional health and well-being. And so those will be utilized by buildings in the next month to place students appropriately into supports and interventions, and give us a glimpse as a district of what interventions are most often used, working best, any that may not be working well, and allow us to revise the systems that we have in place at each tier level. We also, with both Goal 2 and Goal 3, will be sharing many resources and supports with our families at the upcoming Fall Festival, which is September 24th from 11 o'clock to 2 o'clock here at the administrative building. We have tons of PTOs, agencies, partners, contributors for that event, as we did for our back to school events at the beginning of the year. And there are so many people to thank that it would be difficult to list them all out here. So we are going to make sure to include all of those partners in the minutes of this meeting.
Katie, are we asking teachers as well as administrators what their thoughts on the block? Okay.
Yes.
I just want to make sure we're getting
We will be. We haven't done it yet, but we will be doing that.
I'll make it brief. As for safety specifically, that's been a really integral piece. I got to thank Dr. Ossel here because I think she's done a big lift behind the scenes with the information. Dr. Bresnahan, Mr. Tirina, and Mr. Kluge came to this meeting as well with departments, and we're just trying to make things right, things better. We also talked with Mrs. Ann Wing back there, and she was very helpful in terms of helping us create that communication between administration as well as the certified staff so that we are all in the loop. We know the importance, and we're going to be working together. Also, I've been working a lot with Eleni on bids that are going to be coming up in the next several months. Two of them include gas and electric. That I can't wait to see how that one goes. And then the increase in per pupil expenses, we've looked at those over the last year, and across the board, it's about $2,000 per school. But from what I've understood from talking to other districts as well, it's a lot of this COVID spending dollars. Granted, we may have closed the gap a little bit. I'll get numbers for that in our next update, but it's still not good enough. You still have a gap where, depending on what school you go to. So we're evaluating that, and I have promised Dr. Bresnahan a quarterly update with that with SLT so that we can look and adjust as needed.
Hold on 1 second, Ross. Ron, can you give an update on the remote classrooms? I know they're supposed to be in. I know you put in the Friday update. We all know it, but the public doesn't know, and there's probably some staff and students in those two schools would like an update on that.
Oh, no, absolutely. So the due to the labor and the materials that were shorted out throughout the country, we've been struggling to actually get the mobiles put together, and then brought up to Elk Grove. Right now, we have an anticipated date of September 26th for us to have the mobiles here and attached. MWRD has approved of all the work that we are doing currently, which is normally a really difficult piece of this whole thing, but they did okay. So now we're just kind of waiting on that. So we have some contractors right now who are doing some of the work with the water and the electric, so that when the time comes, everything will be connected. Those mobiles will have strictly key card access. They'll be covered. We'll have cameras on them as well, so they'll be safe, just like the rest of our buildings.
Thank you.
Good evening. The Human Resource Department is starting to shift gears from hiring to recruitment. Amazing to say in September. Like many districts around us, we still have a few open positions, but we also understand that the strongest teachers in the candidate pools have secure jobs at this time, and we are not going to be taking teachers out of classrooms with students. So we are looking at our partnerships with universities and student teachers and moving towards recruitment efforts for December graduates. We also have the need for some substitutes. And where would you find that information? I'll show you because I have control of the laptop. If you go to our district website, about human resources, and then it says subbing right here. And we reached out to we actually had a couple individuals reach out to us today inquiring about the benefits of subbing in District 59. And we learned that we're doing a very good job in terms of our daily rates, including our bonuses for this school year, which we thank the board for supporting. After 30 days, whether it's 30 days in a row or not, there's a $250 bonus as well on your 60th day and your 90th day. Right now, you can get a couple bonuses between now and the winter holidays. I've counted it out. So that'd be an extra $500. Plus $130 a day for subbing as a teacher. And we do have a few long-term maternity leaves coming up, which is $150 a day for those extended leaves. All the information you need is right here. You can always email me if you or a friend is interested.
Hey Ross, when we do student teaching, is there an expense to that, or is that like an unpaid internship?
That is unpaid.
Mm-hmm.
There's not an expense to the district for that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's standard, correct? Because it's basically they're paying their tuition to the school, and that's in lieu of going to classes
Correct.
or coming to student teach.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
It is a terrific pipeline to get to know future educators, and those are pipelines that we are starting to strengthen.
Mm-hmm.
And Ross, can you briefly say what requirements there are to be a substitute?
Sure. So right here on the website, the best thing you can do is go right here, District 59, about human resources, and you can complete the online application, and then that will instantly connect you to us, and we will reach out to you. There are a few different things that you can have in order to sub right now, and we will individualize, we'll find out what you have, we'll connect you to the resources. There are a few different options, but we'll give you all the details you need. You don't need to worry about it.
But do I need a teaching license?
You don't need a teaching license. No, absolutely. So all the information is right here. It can get complicated, but we'll walk you through that. So don't worry about it.
If you need a letter of recommendation, Joe, I will gladly sign one for you.
I have a teaching gig right now. Thank you very much.
I guess we're on to item 10.0. Ben, you got an update back there?
It's tough to do both. I will just say our department has been working pretty diligently to support the equity task force, plus the equity work and the communications. So that's been our prime focus for right now. So thank you for asking.
Thanks. And I don't know if it's appropriate to give a comment, but I think one takeaway from listening to public comment tonight is how we might think about making sure some information about this gets out to all of our constituency. And I'm wondering if that looks like a postcard or what, but I just think it's a really key point that there's some people who may not have email or access or may not be aware. So I appreciate that you're strategizing about these.
And that's one of the things, obviously, I've thought about tonight, hearing that multiple times. If you go to our equity site, you can see the string of communications we have been sending since May of last year. There have been a number of them, but that doesn't mean that they're all reaching their audiences. So I want to run the reports. I want to see what it looks like, the read rates, because we have all of those. And I would like to see what that looks like. And absolutely consider whatever options we have to get the word out, because we can create the things. And I just really appreciate the one person said it was beautiful, so that was very nice. But otherwise, if people aren't reading it, then we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can to accomplish that goal.
I have a question about read rates. Can I ask what that is? A read rate? Does that just mean they opened it?
You can see who opened it and the amount of time they spend on it.
The amount of time as well. Thank you.
Item 10.0, continuing business announcements.
I have none.
We have nothing. All right. 11.0, FOIA request. Mr. Ross.
Since the last report to the Board of Education, the district has received 9 FOIAs. We have been able to respond to 6 of those FOIAs. 3 of them required that we ask for the 5-day extension. We are still working on those, and those will be reported to the board at our next meeting.
Okay.
Item 12.0, report to the Board of Education. Everyone want to start? You want me to?
One real quick. 2, actually. I want to thank Principal Razor and his team at Holmes. I stopped by to listen to the Ovid presentation the other night. Packed house, and it's great to see parents and students taking active steps at that age to prepare for college and kind of life after high school. So that was really great. The team did a really good job there. And then this last Friday was the fun fair at Lowe. And I want to thank Kelly Meyer, who's one of the moms in our area there at Lowe, and the PTO, because they were running around making sure that event was flawless, and the kids had a great time. But it's just kind of the amount of effort that the parents put in to make sure that these things run as well as they do. But just I wanted to tip the hat off to them as well. So just wanted to say thanks.
Dr. Joe, you want to go or you want me to go?
You go ahead. I got NSSU.
Okay. So I had a busy week last week. I think Wednesday was our Finance Facility Committee meeting. You kind of saw what the result of the presentation. This next meeting, we'll be talking about what we want to do next summer. So hopefully we'll have that for you in October. Then Wednesday, me and a lot of staff members and community members got to go to Ridge and read from the book Wonder. It was a wonderful experience. I love how 4th graders reason when they ask you your age. And I could go on a long story about that, but it was kind of humorous. I like how they were reasoning about my age and how I looked. So it was a fun conversation. And then on Friday, Dr. Shager and I got to visit Salt Creek Elementary. It was a really nice to see. We kind of were at a crazy point at one time when we started walking around the school, and 2nd graders were going and 1st graders were going back and forth between specials. Seeing the gym class and that gym being full of kids kind of goes to the point we do need to look at our facilities going forward, because it was a packed gym. It was that case because it was right after lunch and they were still unfinished the multi-purpose room, cleaning the multi-purpose room. They use that once that room is cleaned, so they're using all the facilities. I do want to add that in the Friday update, there is a section up in the top right corner of activities that's going on in the district, like the fun fair and stuff like that at Julie Lowe. If you plan on attending that, I would just encourage you to reach out to Dr. Bresnahan and the principal, just give them a heads up, hey, I may show up, just so they know you're coming, just as a common courtesy, and just don't show up and surprise them, because I don't think they really like being surprised. With that, I think that's all I got to add for my Board of Education report. I was supposed to meet with the board president from 57 and 25 or 26 last night, but we decided to reschedule that because of the stuff we both all had going on. So I'll give an update at the next board meeting for that.
Okay, and then for NSSEO, I don't really have much of an update, except the NSSEO Foundation will be having bingo night as a fundraiser at the Arlington Ale House, October 12th from 7 to 9 p.m. So they have like a raffle and bingo games. It's supposedly a very fun time. I think I've just sent you all an email with the invitation and how to get to it. For members of the public, you can go to nsseo.org and click on events, and there's a site there to register for the bingo night. So please give to the NSSEO Foundation. It's a good cause.
So I would just share a quick update that obviously Patty and I discussed earlier. We're participating on the task force as the members of the board serving in that capacity. Absolutely have been reading emails that are coming in, I think like all my fellow board members on these points. So if you do have feedback, you should feel free to email the board. And I think also so that it's collected in one spot, if you would also share that feedback through the website. We've shared it tonight, but you just go to CCSD59.org, click the equity link, and then there's an opportunity to put in questions and comments. And I do want to point out that like these equity meetings actually begin with a combination of those submitted questions as well as the task force's questions that they put up on the board. So the administration is coming prepared to answer these questions, give feedback, and Cropper's been very helpful in sharing data related to those questions. So really just know you're not dropping your feedback into a black hole. Like this is information that the committee is actually engaging with. So again, would encourage you to share that. I also want to second Robert. I attended the Juliet Lowe Fun Fair, and I think what was especially awesome about the PTO is there's a lot of young families in that Juliet Lowe Heritage Park neighborhood. And I know Kelly and other PTO members dropped flyers. So there was a lot of future attendees of District 59 who got a great first experience with District 59 by attending this event, which really turned into a community event, even beyond a school event. So that was great to see.
Go ahead, Mardo.
I passed out this earlier. It says old school skills that children shouldn't lose. And we talked about so many things tonight that we have to do in the art and the gym and all the different things. Well, do our children know how to tell time on an analog clock? Do they know how to spell? Do they know how to read a map or write a thank you note or wash dishes by hand or mow a lawn or write in cursive? We've accomplished that one. How to make change with coins and how to tie a man's tie and do laundry. And I just thought it was interesting because they're all things that we have to do. And we all learned it because we learned it from our parents, but I'm not sure all children are today. And we can't expect the parents to teach all these things. So perhaps we should try as teachers in our classrooms to just kind of pick up some of the old-fashioned things and teach our children how to do them because they're important. And the other thing I was going to just mention, and I did mention it to Randy before, I've been watching, I'm a history buff, and I've been watching television day and night during this Queen's situation. Our beginning of our country was mostly people from England who were dissatisfied with what they had there. we don't have a queen. And just listening to everybody at this meeting tonight, you can see how difficult it is to govern. It's not easy to govern. The queen governed for 70 years, several different countries. And I think she should really be appreciated more than anybody else, because she is quite not only a wonderful woman, a wonderful mother, but she was a wonderful queen for 70 some years. So I just want to congratulate her.
Thank you. Are any other updates? All right, can I get a motion to go to closed session?
I move that we go to closed session for the discussion of the items listed in A through D.
I second.
Questions, comments? Roll call, please.
Sager.
Aye.
Schumacher. Aye. Espino.
Aye.
Lang.
Hi.
Mencia.
Aye.
Petrielli. Aye. And Reed.
Aye.